Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Izuku was declared a UA traitor and took his revenge on his class and school. Part 1. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 2, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗧𝗵𝗲 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. It's late at night in Tartarus prison and most of the inmates would have fallen asleep right at the moment, with the guards patrolling along the area to come to check on the convict if they were still in their cell or not. One of the guards placed his baton on the prison bars while continuing to stroll, creating a sound that made it much harder to sleep, while flashing his flashlight at each cell to check their whereabouts. In one of the cells lies a green-haired boy lying on his bed, covering his head with a pillow, trying to block the sound of rustling baton ringing through his eardrum. The boy lies on his bed trying to get a few shut in after exhausting from exercising in the courtyard this morning. The boy smiled gleefully, staring at the wall of his cell without any picture or poster to be stared at, with nothing but a concrete wall. Boom! Suddenly, a small explosion is being made from the outside, shattering the concrete wall along with the metal plate from where the exterior of the Tartarus prison is coming. A huge hole is formed behind the cell of his prison. As he looks up at the giant hole, he sees a clear view of Mizudafu City right in front of him, illuminated by the light coming from the city. The prison alarm starts to blare when the guard awakens, creating a ruckus in their cell. The guards are rushing and trying to open his cell, but the magnetic lock on his cell door is malfunctioning and they need to get the manual key to open it. But the boy didn't waste any time as he looked down to see just how high his cell was currently at, and a bit far from his calculation, but he knew that in real life, plans always change. So he wasted no time and quickly jumped and took a swan dive down below, where his body landed on the deep ocean, creating a huge splash of water. But the tidal condition and the night of the sky make it harder for the guard to find out if the prisoner is serving or not, with the sea itself filled with sharp rocks and coral. The boy managed to survive the fall. He opened his eyes and found himself deep in the water and dived forward, trying to keep his distance away from the prison before he had to catch his breath. Guess I finally took your advice after all, only this time I meet the torrent of the sea instead of a concrete floor like you always wanted. He continued to swim before he had to catch his breath for oxygen and dive upward, exhale his breath, and watch the city of Mizudafu in front of him with only one thing in his mind. I'm coming for you, Kaken. Katsuki walked into the hallway of UA with his school uniform and his bag on his shoulder while looking through his phone without paying attention to where he was going. He continued to scroll his phone while looking through the text message he got later that night from 𝗕𝗓𝗓 and from his parents, but he wasn't in the mood in replying right now because he was in a hurry to go to his class before he was late. He slides the door open and finds himself to be early without anyone in the class except for a few of his class, so he just walks over to his desk and finds an empty seat behind him while smiling in satisfaction. The ashen blonde kid put his feet on the desk while playing with his phone, but before he could look through the social media to distract his mind, the door slid open and Kirishima entered along with Jirou, Mina, and Kaminari, the self-proclaimed Baku squad. "Oh, Baku bro, you're early." Kirishima greets him, waving his hand. "Though you'll be late or something," Jirou added. "Get lost, would you?" "I'm busy right now," Katsuki replied angrily. He looked at the two of them went to their own desk instead, while Kaminari went to his desk and dozed off from the lack of sleep, and Mina was busy having a chat with Hagakure and Uraraka about her new dress that she bought online from Hokkaido. Katsuki internally rolled his eyes at their girly chat while trying to play with his phone when someone was shaking his shoulder, calling to him. Bakugo." He turned around and saw Jirou in front of him. "What do you want, soy sauce face?" Katsuki replied, clearly looking bothered for the second time. "Can I copy your homework, man? I totally forgot about it yesterday." Jirou begged. "Maybe you won't forget about it if you hadn't played an online game with shitty hair over there," Katsuki replied. "Come on, Baku bro. We totally forgot about it. We promise that this will be the last time." Kirishima asked, joining with Jirou. "What is this I heard about copying someone's homework? It is truly unbecoming for an aspiring hero." Ida came in between, trying to reprimand both Kirishima and Jirou. "Come on, Ida, we simply forgot about it. Can't you just simply let us go?" Jirou tries to excuse himself away. Absolutely not. I'm sorry, but you have to face your punishment for not doing your homework. Your action after all has consequences. Ida lectured both of them. Katsuki is looking all pissed, gritting his teeth because they choose to argue with his desk. He was about to shoot another profanity out of his mouth when suddenly the door is opened and Izawa-sensei enters the room looking all tired like always. All right, head to your seat, class is about to begin, Izawa replied, and lower your feet, Bakugo. Katsuki clicked his tongue before he fixed his seat back and everyone returned to their respective seat. Kirishima and Jirou also returned to their seat. All right, we're about to start today's class, so, ding. Izawa is about to begin the class when suddenly a phone rings in the middle of the class. All right, whose phone is that? He looks annoyed that someone didn't turn off their phone. Katsuki grunts knowing that it belongs to him since he forgot to switch it to silent mode because the extras in his class are bothering him all day. He was just about to fish the phone out of his pocket when suddenly he heard a ringing sound from behind. This time belonged to a purple midget. Then another is ringing, but this time it's on Ida's seat. Now this is a surprise since he thought of all people, for Aiz would have always set his phone on a goddamn silent mode, but to think he would forget about it is such a surprise. Then one more, but this time is on Round Cheek's desk. Then ears, then bird brain, then big lips, then shitty hair, even the hobo gets one. All of the phones in the class start to ring, which raises a question, and Izawa decides to open his own phone to check on the message, wondering what it's all about. It took less than 10 seconds to see his face turning from annoyance to a dreaded look as he began to put his phone back in his pocket and rushed to the door. Class is on hold, I will send someone to replace me. Don't cause any ruckus and everyone stays here. Ida, you're in charge while I'm gone. Izawa replied before hurrying to leave, and no one opens their phone. Soon everyone began to wonder what kind of news could scare off their teacher and turned into a helicopter mom mode like that. Out of curiosity, 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝗧 decided to pry into her phone, wondering if the news that everyone received was the one that scared off their teacher. But when she opened her phone, she suddenly yelped in surprise, but her tone sounded with fear. What's wrong? Mina immediately went over to her side as the invisible girl quickly tossed her phone on the floor. Mina tried to grab her phone, but Ida was much quicker and he took 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝗧's phone. Izawa-sensei had told us, no one is supposed to look at the news, we can't disobey our teachers. Order. You do realize that any one of us can just look at our phone and see for it ourselves, right? Shoto points out while his hand went to his pocket. The others follow as well, and Ida is left standing in the middle of the classroom, knowing that he can't stop over 17 hands grabbing to each of their phone. But once they open their phone to see the news, all of them had the same mixture of emotions as Izawa-sensei and 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝗧 did with the girls, but one thing for sure, everyone had the word fear painted in their expression. Tartarus prison break, prisoner escape. It was a news report about a fugitive escape from prison, but what caught everyone's surprise was not the news that a villain was escaping or on the loose in the city, but the picture that's on the front headline of the news itself. It was Izuku Midoriya's picture. Yaoyorozu, who had a tablet in her bag, decided to watch the news as everyone was circling her table, including Katsuki, who tried to listen to the newscaster announcing the news about the breakout. Hello, Mizudafu citizens. This is Ito Harumi from Channel 7 News, where we bring you everything you need to know so you can be safe around the clock. She announces while wearing professional attire with a gray blouse. Now we announce about a certain villain that has escaped from a high-security prison. No one is quite sure who it is, but is speculated to be the former UA student, Izuku Midoriya. A picture is shown of him, everyone tenses at her words, looking around at each other. The infamous student of Class 1A who made his name at sports festival fighting against the son of the number 2 hero, Endeavor, Shoto Todoroki, who managed to wow few of the spectators with his feat. The newscaster announced switching to the footage where Izuku and Todoroki are fighting at the sports festival. Izuku Midoriya is suspected to be the UA traitor after Principal Nizu, the headmaster of UA school, along with the school faculty, had suspected him after 2 villain attack that hits the school, and he's being sent to prison 7 months ago. Izuku Midoriya was suspected of escaping the Tartarus prison yesterday night by placing an explosive inside the prison and creating a hole inside of his cell. the scene changed to a picture of a giant hole in the side of a maximum security prison where many violent villains were held. Tartarus head jailer hasn't given any statement regarding the escaped prisoner, but an anonymous source said that there is no sign of corpse inside of his cell, leading to believe that Izuku Midoriya had indeed escaped. Everyone didn't bother to continue to listen through at the end of the news as they all felt like they heard more than enough. Mina and Jirou put their hand on their mouth trying to prevent themselves from vomiting. Aoyama, Koda, Ojiro, and Tokoyami all held a pensive look, not saying a word. But the ones who held the most shock were the students who were on the front view of the news itself. Uraraka, Shoto, Ida, and Tsuyu all held a horrified look on their faces, and the bubbly girl's face was as white as a sheet. Kirishima, Shiro, Kaminari, and Toru watched with widened eyes as they were unable to believe it. But the one who seemed to look in the most shock was Katsuki himself, as his forehead started to sweat and his eyes were bulging the size of a plate while continuing to be the only one that was left to watch. "You guys, is that really him?" "No way. I'm calling Mr. Aizawa," Ida says, pulling out his phone with shaky hands. The line rings for a moment before he answers, but Katsuki is too entranced by the screen. That was the last news we've heard of Izuku Midoriya's latest prison break until today. We will hope to get UA's thoughts and clarifications on this issue. Now in other news, he was in Tartarus, right? How did he escape? Everyone calm down. Everyone was starting to panic slightly. The noise from the talking and the screeching rattled in his head. The words, escaped, and Deku were bouncing around, and all he could say was, Deku. Izuku is hiding behind the wall of an abandoned alley while still wearing his gray prison jumper. The street is littered with police cars patrolling around the area, and he can see that his picture has been on a poster spread all over the city, presumably the social media as well. He tried to catch his breath while his face and clothes were still wet from swimming to the city and hiding under a truck from the dock warehouse before it parked in the city, and he managed to come out before the driver took notice. Right now, he's pretty low on provision. No clothes, no food, no places to stay, and no quirk. If the cops, or worse, a pro hero, found him, then he would stood no chance while still exhausted like the way he is right now. He needs to find a place to lay low, and that's when he spotted a back door leading to a shop. He grabbed a busted pipe on the floor and pried the locks open. The lock was quickly busted and he entered before anyone could spot him. He enters and finds himself in a dark room with no source of light while trying to grab anything on the wall that feels like a SW. He flicked it and found himself in some sort of gun store. There were all kinds of weapons he could find hanging on the wall, waiting to get picked up. From a simple hunting knife to a sniper rifle used by the hunter, all hanging on display. Camp emergency provisions, food and drinks, clothes. Izuku only had one thing to say. Jackpot. Aizawa came rushing to the teacher's office faster than any time he'd ever been there, running as he had never done except when he learned that Izuku Midoriya declared a traitor in the first place 7 months ago. He assumed that Mike and Midnight were at the office or their class and came running as well, and everyone was currently gathered at their discussing of matter at hand. He had no idea what to think right now. Thousands of thoughts run through his mind, but all lead to one single question. Is it true? Of course, at the time, Aizawa was among the teachers who believed that the kid was truly the traitor. The level of analysis and intelligence that he shows in that notebook is accurate. Scary accurate. How he found a way to neutralize Bakugo's quirk, disabling Ida in less than 5 seconds, and cornering Todoroki by using psychological attack and manipulation. And not just his students, but also pro heroes itself. Endeavor, Death Arms, the Lady, Ectoplasm, Mike, even him. At the time, of course, he was positive about the information at hand. He truly was the traitor, and by his way of acting in class, trying not to stand out and keeping himself hidden from others to notice, he was already sure that he found the culprit, and he could look at his class and told them face to face that the traitor had been apprehended. He finally entered the teacher's office and found everyone standing there with the same distraught look on their faces. Even All Might was also there with his lanky features and bony skeleton face looking all distraught. Is it true? Aizawa asked his colleague about the news. I'm afraid it's true, Aizawa. A voice came from his back and he turned to see Principal Nizu standing behind him. Izuku Midoriya indeed escaped from the Tartarus facility yesterday at midnight. 𝗍𝗂 confirmed the story, thus finalizing the question on everyone's mind. Everyone kept their silence in check, trying to process the truth regarding the news that it happened. Some of them refused to admit it, but seeing the explosion that's happened on the Tartarus wall is enough proof they needed to confirm their story. So what now? Vlad decided to ask, wondering what to do with the situation. For now, the police require our full assistance to capture him back to Tartarus. All of Izuku Midoriya's files during his time at school, the police needed them to build a profile case. 𝗍𝗂 informed Izawa. Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 is in presence. Izawa asked if the detective was assigned to this case. Unfortunately, Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 has still handling a high-profile case in America for about a year now, so a different detective will take over the case for now until he comes back, 𝗍𝗂 informed. And what about Class A? How did they handle the news? Toshinori chose to ask. Izawa rubbed the back of his head. To be honest, I've no idea what happened. After I saw the news, I just came rushing to this place and told them to keep their phone out, but knowing them, I suspect 1 or 2 students will disobey that order. I want to ask something. Midnight raised her hand, gaining the attention of the other faculty. I know that regarding Izuku Midoriya, imprisonment is rather unfair at the time, she replied bitterly, but are we all certain that he truly is the traitor? The other teacher looks around, uncomfortable, bringing the topic back at hand. Izawa is the first to answer. Namuri, we talked about this before. Izuku Midoriya's notes are just too detailed for us to be missing the fact that he truly is the traitor. You saw what he was writing over there, how to disable someone's quirk. Students, teachers, even pro-heroes. I know that during the time we voted, I was outvoted along with Snipe, but we sent that kid for 7 months in prison while we waited for Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗲 to come, even though we insisted that he quickly return from his case in America. But what pisses me off is the fact that the source of that evidence is somewhat lackluster in my opinion. Namuri, my class is confident at the time. That's why when Uraraka and Ida handed me that notebook before, I made sure that they were to keep an eye on him, to observe his behavior and find anything suspicious. And why can't you do that at the time and choose to send your students instead? Namuri questioned. Midoriya is always keeping his distance from everyone, including the teacher, except for All Might, but I don't want to alarm him of finding out that we might suspect him. It's better to have 19 pairs of eyes around him that he knows than 1 pair of eyes that he always acts so skittish around. You mean you keep your distance? Midnight corrected, causing Izawa to tense. Don't bullshit me, Shoyuta. We all knew that you barely put any effort into the kid's progress from the start and always gunning at him since he was being favored by All Might from the beginning. Namuri pointed out, not hiding any scrap of truth, causing All Might to tense by the accusation of Midoriya having some personal connection to him. The kid always acts like the victim. Oh, that's bullcrap, Shoyuta, and we all knew about it. We kept our silence for over 3 years, but you can't just keep assuming that you were in the right and not counting the other matter. And what matter is that? How about for the fact that you always favored the other kid in your class, like Bakugo, because of how talented he was in your eyes, or perhaps you tried to outsource from others like Shinszo and insist on him take Midoriya's seat, and the only reason why he's not sitting in your class like you dreamed of is because of Midoriya case remains unsolved to this day. Okay, I think you made your point, Nem, Mike said, trying to calm her. Or how about for the fact that the only reason we send the boy to prison in the first place is because of the word of a 15-year-old kid who happened to have an unknown vendetta with him since the first day and happens to report it to the teacher who had the same vendetta as that boy. Bakugo and Midoriya were rivals. On what planet? On what universe, if I may ask? Midnight exploded and went to Aizawa's space and jabbed her finger at his chest. I repeatedly told you to check to their file, but you simply just tossed that to your desk and left it covered in dust worth of 7 months, and judge with you own 2 pair of eyes instead, which isn't working pretty well if you ask me. Namuri, I think that's enough out of you, 𝗍𝗂 said in a firm and authoritative tone, silencing them of their argument. Namuri didn't even realize that she was standing before she took her seat. I know that you find the sentence to be unfair, but we only took necessary precautions at that time. We suffered from 2 major villain attacks and a student was kidnapped by the same group of villains who were responsible for the first attack of the year. And despite what happened, all of the evidence points to Izuku Midoriya being the traitor. Nizu told her about his decision at the time. Right now, I need you all to head to your respective class and calm the situation. The last thing we needed is to have a ruckus even among the school. Nizu then dismisses the group of teachers to get back, but not before Nomuri throws a glare at 𝗬𝗪's direction. The remaining of Class A were still at their desk trying to process the news that had just happened. None of them were talking to each other or having any set of conversations trying to stew the information in their head. Uraraka, 𝗬𝗪, Tsuyu, and Shinszo all looked horrified while lowering their heads and staring at the desk. Kaminari was looking all panicked and looking to his left and right in an accusation manner with 𝗬𝗪 and Kirishima. Katsuki grits his teeth in rage like his usual self but finds that his expression is a mixture of rage and fear. They all remembered what happened on that day. The day that they send one of their own to his demise. Flashback start. What do you guys think of Deku? Uraraka asked out of a sudden while everyone was gathered in the living room except for Izuku in the area. Everyone suddenly stopped their activity and joined in the conversation about a certain classmate of theirs. Well, to be honest with you all, I think he's a bit too much, Kirishima replied, rubbing the back of his head. And he likes to show off during practice. Trying to act all dramatic and everything. Mina commented. I know, right? And how he always acts all nice like that. It just sounds fake. Uraraka groaned. The nerd always acts like that from the beginning. Always begging for attention since middle school. Can't even take a hit if you ask me. Katsuki replied while grunting. At first he always put on an act with his weak persona, now he's all come out looking like he's all powerful like that. I meant, what is his game there? Toru went on talking about it. And what was that with him always trying to be helpful to others? Does he think that people are going to be friends with him? But you had to admit that his notebook pretty much helped us right from the start, Momo replied. If you ask me, that's all he worth, Kaminari said, not caring about it. But his behavior always seems to hinder our class progress. Some of the other class talks about us because he tends to butt into other people's business. Ida began to lecture. Just wish that he's gone if you asked me, Mina said under her breath but loud enough for everyone to hear. Everyone then stopped with the conversation while staying at their seat, not doing anything before. They heard someone talking. But what if we can? They all turned to see Bakugo smirks with his usual look, smiling, thinking that he had a great idea blooming in his mind. What if we can get rid of that nerd from this school once and for all? Katsuki suggested. What, you want him to get expelled or something? Kaminari asked, not following the flow of this conversation. I'm not talking about expelled. I'm talking about out of the picture for good, he spoke, his voice sounding sure with the idea itself. What are you talking about? Tokoemi looks over. That notebook of his. What if we can prove that he's using that to leak information to those villains? Katsuki said. You meant that notebook he always carries around with. Uraraka remembers that notebook that he always carries around. So we framed him? Shoto asked, almost like he could read Bakugo's mind. That notebook is filled with tons of information about us. Our quirks, support items, weaknesses, how to counter against them, everything is in there. It's got more than enough to prove that he's feeding information to the League of Villains. He began to explain his plans. But how do we do that? We can't just show the teachers that he's doing that. There would be no proof that he did that. Jirou points out, noticing the flaw in their plan. We already have that. I overheard the teacher talking after we finished with the summer camp. Mike Sensei suspected that there might be a traitor in the school after 2 recent villain attacks. Toru says, remembering the conversation she overheard that day. That's perfect. We can use that to sway the teacher to believe us. Uraraka claps her hands, smiling in delight. Katsuki ends his explanation with a sinister smirk on his face. So, what do you say? You're all in it. Flashback end, and so they did go on with the plan. They managed to frame him that day. Building up rumors by slowly causing disturbance unknown by the other teachers, telling them that Deku is acting all suspiciously and pointing out his notebook with tons of information about the heroes. And they did it. The teacher looks up to their fake story and takes Deku out one day and ends up arresting him for the whole school to see if it happens, as he is being led to an armored police truck with cameras and reporters demanding an explanation. Katsuki and the others were smirking during that day, watching his shocked face as Deku was finally gone for good from the class. He almost wanted to take pictures of him when he was being taken. They were celebrating happily at the time, partying at the dorms how they managed to send that waste of space from the school. As a bonus, Katsuki and Uraraka were dating straight away after he was sent to prison. All Might also has a talk with him and offers his quirk to him, and what makes him happy is the fact that the same quirk also belongs to Deku. For the past 7 months, they have been living happily and Deku-free, enjoying school life. But now, Deku is escaping from prison and he's coming to them. And not just any prison, but Tartarus itself, where they would store the most dangerous prisoner from staying to all for one. What spooks them is the fact that Deku is free and might blab about their little plan to send him to prison. After all, he saw their delighted expression after having his but being sent into that truck. If Deku decides to talk about their plan, then most likely they will be questioned by the teachers or worse the police, and they will all end up getting kicked out from UA. All they could do at this time was for the pros and the police to catch him. Should be easy because the freak is quirkless right now and has no skill to survive without any quirk. Katsuki gave about a week before they heard the news that Deku was already being apprehended. And once he got his but captured, he would make sure that Deku would never speak any of their plans to anyone. Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 is just landing in Japan after his 15 long hours of flight, and even though he just finished landing at the Mizudafu airport, he didn't head back to his apartment for a shower or even bother to buy a takeout meal at the airport, and instead rushing straight to UA ordering a taxi to take him there. He was just being briefed by his assistant a few hours before he was supposed to take off, saying that Izuku Midoriya from UA Hero Course Class A was escaping from Tartarus prison for leaking sensitive information to the League of Villains. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 had to ask his assistant to repeat the news for a third time, making sure that he heard it correctly. Izuku Midoriya. As in Izuku Midoriya, the boy that Toshinori told that inherited All Might quirk. The same boy who competed in the sports festival who impressed a lot of people. There's tons of missing information that's still gaping. What makes them so sure that the boy is truly the traitor, and why? And more importantly, why is no one bothered to inform him that the boy is being sent to Tartarus instead of a regular prison? 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 quickly paid the cab driver, came out, walked inside UA, and told the receptionist that Detective 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 was present and wanted to see Principal Nizu urgently, flashing the receptionist his badge. Soon he was allowed to enter and immediately walked into the office, not bothered by a few glances from the students of the police detective who was just walking into the school during the lunch break, gaining a lot of attention. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 quickly arrived and opened the door, harshly not paying attention to whoever was in there. Principal Nizu sits in his office with a calm demeanor, almost like he was expecting to see the detective to come. "Ah, detective, what can I do for you today?" Principal Nizu replied with a soothing tone, one that 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 found to be laced with condescending. "Cut the CRP, would you? I want to know what happened to Izuku Midoriya while I was gone. And spare no detail, cause I want to know your excuse for sending a 15-year-old kid to Tartarus prison." 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 barked out orders, not wanting to waste a second. "Well, it's just as you hear it. Izuku Midoriya is presumed to be a traitor for leaking information about our students and pro-heroes, including my staff. On what evidence?" "The evidence lies in his notebook. Izuku Midoriya has at least information worth 10 years of analysis regarding a pro-hero's quirk. From the nature of it to how counters against it. I find the information to be scarily accurate in my opinion, and so you decide to send the boy to Tartarus instead. How long has he been sitting there?" 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 asked, since he was left unknown of his incarceration period. "About 7 months, Nizu answered. 7 months. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 exploded in front of the principal, looking enraged. "You kept a boy inside of prison for 7 months based on a doodle notebook that was made by one of your students. 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁, need I remind you that there are students outside these doors? But you don't want them to hear about your latest accomplishment in keeping this school safe." 𝗧𝗵𝗃𝗁 rants, not bothering to keep his formality in check, You were able to stand and walking on this school like a proud peacock with feathers coming out of your butt, and yet you didn't have the time to call for me before you sent that kid into prison, which is by now is pointless since he already escaped. You were busy solving a case in America. One question. One simple question from my mouth and this whole matter is over, but you decide to skip the formality and procedure and send him to prison because you don't want people to know what you did count as illegal arrest. We had solid evidence from a testimony from his classmate. Evidence can be forged and testimony can be a lie. Why do you think my quirk is around in Japan to begin with? You do realize that if Izuku Midoriya is indeed not the traitor, you would be sentencing that kid to a career suicide. You dragged that kid good name through the mud because you let them cloud your judgment and make you jump the gun. Tsukachi stops with his ranting and looks at the white mammal with much hatred and disdain leaking out from him, knowing that this kid has gone through a lot. The school is sending that kid to a prison without any law process under the excuse to keep the students safe, and yet they were willing to burn a single kid for that sacrifice. It's simply ridiculous. What about his quirk? What happened to One for All? Tsukachi spoke after calming down. Toshinori took One for All out of the kid for safekeeping. We can't allow All for One to have access to that quirk, especially with the two of them in the same prison. So Toshinori has One for All. Not exactly. Katsuki is grunting while holding his right arm in pain after trying to use All Might's quirk for the third time this month, and yet he still fails for who knows how many times this has gone to. He's holding onto his arm, compressing it with ice to soothe the pain, but he still has no explanation for why is the quirk rejecting him. All Might have explained to him before that to wield One for All, one must have a strong physique to able to withstand the power that was from the quirk itself. All Might sees the potential in Katsuki and that's why he offers him the quirk, but for some reason, he can't use the quirk like Deku was, and every time he tries to use it for the first time, it mangles his right arm, forcing him to stay at the hospital for a month. Katsuki went to All Might for some explanation as to why he couldn't use it, but the number one hero himself had no explanation for himself since he never had any problem wielding it, and to make matters worse, Deku can MSTR it just fine. He's cursing under his breath, saying about how shitty this has gone to and how Deku can use this power, but somehow Katsuki didn't have an idea how to wield it. He even went on to ask for the freak notebook, and it didn't even contain any sort of information to One for All at all, which angers Katsuki even more. Now he was all alone at the dorm, sulking about his latest injury while sitting on the sofa before he heard the door creak open and the rest of the class entered, chatting after coming from the mall and hanging out. "We're back," Toru announced. "God, I'm so exhausted. My netta pants and tired. Come on dude, man up a little." Kaminari nudges over to his small figure while smirking. Katsuki would have shouted at them to keep things quiet, but because of his injury, he couldn't shout at the top of his lungs like always, unless he wanted to feel another set of pain in his arm. He noticed that some of them weren't back just yet and began to ask the closest to his, which is glasses, "Hey, four eyes, where the F is the rest of them?" They all went to get lunch. Uraraka, Tsuyu, and Yaoyorozu went to get lunch. Mina and Aoyama went to buy a new perfume. And Sato, Shoji, and Tokoyami are going to the arcade. Ida answered. Katsuki scoffs, "Whatever." Soon the others rejoined their conversation as they started to talk in the kitchen preparing for lunch, and some of them chose to head back to their room. Katsuki decides to spend his time working through his homework while teaching Shitty Hair and Dunce Face some math problems. It took about an hour and the rest of the class was already coming back. Sato's group was the first to come, and around 10 minutes later, Yaoyorozu's group was to come, and she took notice that someone was missing. "Where's Mina and Aoyama?" Yaoyorozu points out, putting her shopping bag on the floor. "I don't know, I thought they were with you," Shiro told her. "No, we didn't see them anywhere, we only saw them at the mall before we got separated." Momo shakes her head looking worried. "They must have on their way right now," Kaminari reassured her. "Yeah, you're probably right." Momo nods. "Oh, by the way, the delivery truck is about to come with your order, Kaminari. Thought I would tell you." "Oh sweet, thanks. You're the best, Yaoyorozu." "What is she talking about?" Kaminari found a life-size model statue of an old hero who uses electricity just like his quirk. And it was a bargain sale and he got it. Kirishima went on to explain. Thought I would place that in my room for decoration. Kaminari smiles. That sounds stupid, Katsuki spoke. You just don't have a sense of taste, Kaminari playfully waved his hand. And just in time, the 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗍 truck informed Yaoyorozu that the truck had already arrived at the front gate of UA and Kaminari had asked Sato and Shoji to help them move it. After Kaminari and the others have gone out, Aoyama arrives carrying 2 shopping bags in his hand consisting of expensive perfume and a new hand mirror, but what everyone takes notice of is the fact she's not coming home with a certain pink-haired girl. Aoyama, where's Mina? Tsuyu points out. She's not with me, says she decided to head back to join you all, Aoyama replied. Huh, that's weird, she didn't join us before. Maybe she got lost. Shoto replied. She's not a child, Todoroki, Uraraka replied. While everyone is discussing Mina's whereabouts, Kaminari is carrying the huge crate box with both Sato and Shoji pushing the crate with the trolley. Wow, you weren't kidding when you said it's life-size, Tokoyami replied, watching the crate as tall as Ida. Can you help me with opening this thing? Kaminari holds the crowbar in his hand. Wouldn't it be better that you open this in your room? Toru points out, looking at the size of the crate. No way, man, I want to see it if they messed up with the shipment, Kaminari replied. So Kaminari had asked for Sato, Shiro, and Tokoyami to help open the crate while the others were worrying that Mina wasn't answering her phone. She's not answering her phone. Momo checked her phone and found the number wasn't answering. Maybe she got stuck in traffic or she's on the subway, Ida assured her. Everyone suddenly stopped what they were doing and turned their attention to Kaminari, who was on the floor wearing a horrified look on his face, along with Tokoyami and Shoji as well. Sato had to cover his mouth, stopping himself from vomiting at the gruesome scene in front of him. The group who wanted to see Kaminari's life-size figure also screamed and began to cry, dropped themselves to the floor, and some had to cover their faces to stop seeing. Ida, Yaoyorozu, Uraraka, Shoto, Katsuki, Kirishima, and Shiro all came rushing to check on what was going on, and they all had to close their mouth to stop vomiting, but all their eyes were fixated on the scene. In front of them is the life-size figure of a pre-Quirk-era hero called Black Lightning striking a heroic pose, but the statue itself is covered in BLD from top to bottom and BLD is dripping to the floor of the crate. The walls inside of the crate are painted with BLD. But what makes them scared is not the fact that the statue is dripping in red liquid. It's the head of the figure that's been replaced, instead of the confident and powerful face of the hero. It's replaced with the class-resident pink girl's decapitated head with a message on the hero's chest written in BLD, "Where is the rest of me?" To say whatever happened at UA 2 hours ago was a mess would be an understatement of a lifetime. The police line, along with 4 patrol cars parked right in the middle with 2 ambulances carrying a body under a tarp and CSI analyzing the crate, is more than enough for the media to use for an ammo to sue UA for the next 15 years. Ishido's headless body is covered in a tarp and was being carried by ambulance for the police to check for any evidence left by the victim, but one thing for sure is that this was nothing but a message. The school itself is under heavy investigation, with Detective 𝗧𝗏𝗁 leading the investigation, interviewing the students of Class A who were still shell-shocked by the recent departure of one of their classmates. The police also asked for the security tape of the school building and access entry to anyone who's entered the school in the last 72 hours for evidence. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 is currently having a conversation with both Principal Nizu and the staff when suddenly, his assistant Sansa, a police officer with a cat feature, comes rushing with a brown envelope in his hand. "Detective, someone came to deliver this for you." Sansa handed the envelope to 𝗧𝗏𝗁 but found it pretty heavy, unlike your usual paper envelope. "From who?" 𝗧𝗏𝗁 asked, since he didn't recognize the sender's name. "I don't know, sir. The sender said that it's from Izuku Midoriya," Sansa reported. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 opens the envelope, takes out the content showing what appears to be a cell phone, and places it on the table. Suddenly the phone starts to ring and the caller's name only shows to be a blocked number. Having no one to pick it up, 𝗧𝗏𝗁 decides to volunteer and answer the call. "Hello," 𝗧𝗏𝗁 answered. "Hello, Detective 𝗧𝗏𝗁, how's America? Did you enjoy the change of scenery?" 𝗧𝗏𝗁 glances around, thinking that the caller is close or around the area. Who is this? I thought you recognized the name. I write it down if I were you. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 then quickly took the envelope and wrote down each letter before he started to rearrange them in his mind. Izuku Midoriya, that's a pretty unusual name if he was being honest. He tried to rearrange the letter and got a single name coming out of it. Izuku Midoriya. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 answered, causing everyone who was in the vicinity to be jolted at the mere mention of the name. Izawa and Nizu turned their head around towards the detective after hearing the name coming out of his mouth. Congratulations, it took less than a minute to come up with that. As expected from the finest detective of Mizudafu, the pride of the police force. Izuku replied, showing a hint of pride in there. Why are you calling me? Did you hold responsible for Ishido's death? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 asked, wondering if his speculation happens to be true. It took about a full 5 seconds of silence before Izuku gave his answer. I did. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 almost felt like his heart was just being swallowed up to his throat, knowing that Izuku was indeed the one that's responsible for it. He heard that he had indeed escaped from prison, but he didn't think that serial killing was gonna be on the top of his list. Why? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 only had that question that rings into his mind, wanting to know why he did this. That's something you should ask my class, isn't it? Izuku replied, causing 𝗧𝗵𝗃 to wonder what he was talking about. An hour? I gave you 1 hour to learn the truth about my wrong incarceration. Call me when you find out the truth. And if I don't, then I'll tell it to the world, and you won't be liking that, Izuku said before ending the call. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 then placed both his hands on the table, feeling overwhelmed, not knowing what just happened. First, he learned that one of the students in Class A was found dead. Then, he just learns that Izuku Midoriya, the former Class A student, is responsible for it. Then, he was told to find out the truth regarding his wrong incarceration and only had an hour before Izuku announced it to the world. He was feeling out of the loop, but even he knows that letting the killer announce something in the media is only bringing unforeseeable catastrophe. Bring the entire Class A student to meet me now. 10 minutes later, after 𝗧𝗵𝗃 had told Sansa to bring Class A to him, all of them gathered at the meeting room where the UA teacher would hold an important meeting regarding the Izuku Midoriya case that was left 7 months ago. All of the class seemed pretty shaken from the tragedy just now, but 𝗧𝗵𝗃 had no moment left to spare. He only got about less than an hour before something bad happened, and he knows that Izuku didn't just call him to alert him. Okay, I know that you seem pretty shaken up, but I have some questions that I need to ask you all. Sure. Uraraka wiped the tears from her eyes. Okay, now when was the last time that you saw Ishido out of the mall? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 asked. We were planning on going to a mall along with the rest of the class. Mina said that she wanted to try a new perfume that she found online, and then she went with Aoyama, and then we decided to go on separate ways. Uraraka went on to explain before she went sobbing again. We saw Aoyama and Mina went out together while we went to get lunch. Me, Uraraka, and Tsuyu all to get lunch, and after we're done, we head back to the dorm. Momo continued to explain to her. And did you see Aoyama go together with her? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 asked. Yes. Momo nods, and 𝗧𝗵𝗃 detects no lie coming from it before he turns to Aoyama for an answer. And did you walk together with Ishido at the time? Why, yes. We walked together before she said that she needed to go back to the dorm, so she headed back alone, I think. Aoyama explained. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 asked, and how long was that? About 10 minutes, sir. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 nods, confirming that it's true. Now, what can you tell me about Izuku Midoriya? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 asked, causing the class to go tense at the mere mention of his name. What's this all about? Kirishima questioned. Well, from what I know, Izuku Midoriya is being sent to prison without going to a judge and just being thrown in jail. So from what I know, you all were present at the time and the ones who were certain that he truly was the traitor. Yeah, the DMN nerd is indeed the traitor. Katsuki replied with his usual tone. And what makes you so certain that he is the traitor? That DMN nerd always muttering every time in class. Always creeping everyone's way. He always writes stuff in that notebook of his. He answers, and did you ever look at the content of those notebooks? 𝗧𝗵𝗃 pressed on. Yeah, I did, back when he was still little. Katsuki crossed his hand in front of his chest. You were friends with Izuku Midoriya, he asked. I ain't friends with that DMN nerd. Now what's this all about? Katsuki slammed his hand on the table, wondering why he was being asked about Izuku Midoriya. I was just asking, young man. So you went to the principal with the notebook that Izuku wrote and told about him being the possible traitor? No, I went to Hobo teacher instead and told him about it, and that DMN nerd is the actual traitor. You seem so certain that he truly is. Of course I am. We all are. And you speaking for all of your class? Hell yeah, I am. Did Izuku Midoriya have a criminal record? That DMN nerd, please. Did Izuku Midoriya have a criminal relative? No. Did you ever see him make any contact with any villain member? Not I know of. Throughout your time at UA, did you ever see Izuku Midoriya harm someone on purpose? No. Have you ever seen Izuku Midoriya display any villainous behavior during his time at UA or before? No, of course not. So how are you so certain that Izuku Midoriya is indeed the UA traitor if he didn't have any villain relative or made any contact with it, and never had a criminal record in the past 15 years? All the adult starts to realize that the detective has a valid point. The boy had never been in contact with villains, to begin with. Didn't have any criminal record. Never caused a ruckus inside of UA. And 7 months ago, the boy suddenly had the urge to go villain. It doesn't make sense. Either Izuku Midoriya is the greatest actor and manipulative kid they have ever seen, or he was hit with a quirk that makes him go all bad in one night. Why are you asking me this question? To begin with, Deku is the traitor like we've been telling you, and he's escaping from Tartarus a week ago. Should you be out there and patrolling instead of asking this ridiculous question? Katsuki shouted in exasperation. Tsukachi fixed his posture before throwing Katsuki a cold gaze, one that he found intimidating, like he saw when All Might was looking at the group of villains back at you. I will when you start telling the truth. All of a sudden, Katsuki's face starts to go pale like a sheet, and not just him but the rest of the class as well. Almost like they just got caught for stealing candy when they were little. You see, I never get to reintroduce myself. Tsukachi starts to rise from his chair and address the group of students. My name is Detective 𝗕𝗄𝗍 Tsukachi, the lead detective of Izuku Midoriya traitor case, along with now the murder of Mina Ishido. And my quirk is called a lie detector. If Katsuki's face weren't white before, now he was turning translucent like a ghost. It's almost like someone is pouring a bucket of ice water on his back. From the moment I came to talk to you, not once what you said is telling the truth. All I heard was nothing but lies coming out of your mouth, and you were easily lying to me, to your teacher, and a bunch of pro-heroes. Without blinking an eye. I'm willing to bet my gun and badge that you framed him to be the traitor of UA because you felt threatened by him, is that right? Tsukachi leans closer to Katsuki's face, but the boy just keeps silent, knowing that he just got caught and busted by everyone including the police. I'll take your silence as a yes. Tsukachi stops with his rants and checks the clock that he still has 7 minutes left. He dials the number to the phone that Izuku gave him and waits till it rings. Izuku picked up the phone and asked, So you finally learned the truth? That your class frames you for being the UA traitor? Tsukachi asked. Put me on speaker. I know that you were with them. And I'll know that the rat and that hobo are there too. Izuku spoke, saying that it wasn't a request. Tsukachi complied and placed the phone on the table before putting it on speaker. So how does it feel, Kaken? Katsuki's face turns in shock hearing his voice coming from the other end of the phone along with the others. Deku. So how does it feel, huh? To know that all of your actions do have consequences. How did you escape? Katsuki growled. 7 months of being in Tartarus after killing one of your classmates, and the first thing that you asked is how did you escape? Wow, guess you are just heartless. Izuku spoke. Is Mina not important to you at all? I meant he was your friend in your little group. Shut it. Where are you so I can kick your butt? And why would I tell you that? Thought you were supposed to be the smart one. After all, you did trick the teacher into putting me behind bars because of a fit of petty jealousy, right? Aizawa-sensei should be there, right? Where is that DMN hobo? Izuku asked, finding his new set of attitude to be disturbing because they never heard such disrespect coming from him like that. I'm here. Aizawa spoke in his usual monotone voice. So how does it feel to be walking into the school from now on with your pants down knowing you just killed your former student's dream on the spot? His voice is laced with so much venom and condensation, wondering if he's talking to the same boy he just sent 7 months ago. Have nothing to say. I'm sorry, what good is that gonna do to me? 𝗬𝗁𝗁 decides to take over the conversation after watching Aizawa's pained expression. He took the phone back and directed it to him. So now I'm here, I'm back to Japan. Come back to Ue Midoriya. We'll talk this out and get it sorted out, I promise you that. You will have a fair trial and I'll help testify against the charges that were brought to you before. Izuku took a moment before he answered with a dry chuckle, Don't make me laugh, detective. I walked into the school and a dozen pro heroes and police officers will swarm me from every direction and all of your promises will be dismissed by the jury. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 bites his lips in silence, knowing that Izuku knows his intention very well. He can't be tricked so easily like that. I'm here just to inform you of what's gonna happen from now on. Everyone suddenly had their attention on him, knowing that this would change things from now on. Since I was being sent to Tartarus because Kakin wants to make a bold statement that he truly is the best in that pitiful school. I thought I decided to do the same with the rest of the class. I intended to put the spotlight on them as well. What? Of course, Mina already has her turn with her face being posted on every social media platform, in every magazine, in every newspaper, and the hero bulletin. Just like what she always wanted to have the spotlight on her and be taken notice by this society, right? As the pro-hero Pinky. You killed Mina just because you want to make a statement. Jirou asked, looking all flabbergasted. You're sick. Katsuki cursed. Pot meets kettle, Izuku snarked back. You're gonna pay for what you did, Midoriya. You hear me? Kirishima roared in front of the phone before he got pushed back by Sato and Ojiro. Oh Kirishima, I almost forgot that you're there. Izuku's voice then changed with a fake sympathetic tone in him. I know that this must feel so hard, right? Especially after you just confessed to her, about 2 weeks before my incarceration. Does she make you happy? Did you two go steady or have some bumps along the way? Kirishima continued to grunt while trying to pry the phone and pulled out the collar to beat the living snot out of him. Did you know that she called your name before she got decapitated? Izuku asked before switching his tone again. Kiri, help me, please help me. Kirishima grits his teeth so hard listening to his taunting words, almost wanting to snap that phone in half. The others also felt their stomach turned inside out, knowing that Izuku was mocking Kirishima and the deceased Mina by pretending to mimic her voice. Kiri, listen to me, okay? I love you. Shut your mouth. I'll kill you, Midoriya. I'll kill you for what you did to her. Kirishima exploded, trying to grab the phone and snap it to half even after being pushed by Sato, Tokoyami, Ojiro, and Ida. The girls are all crying after listening to Mina's dying words. Coming out of Izuku's mouth. Again with the fear-mongering attitude, are you parroting Kakin right now? He spoke in a condescending tone once again. You kill her, and for what? For shiggles. Isn't that how you treated me before? Why are you so worked up about it? Izuku taunts him, only angers Kirishima on a new set of anger even more. Enough, Midoriya, you know that you won't get away with all of this, right? The heroes are gonna capture you eventually. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 speaks. And I'll be there, you 𝗕𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁. I'll put you in the ground where you belong. Katsuki roared in anger, declaring his words. Good to know. And don't you forget, Kakin, that you never see the bullet that takes you down. Soon Izuku ends the call as the rest of them stand in silence, stewing the new information they just learned. If I had my way with all of you right now, I'd be expelling you all straight away without a second thought and packing you to Tartarus to get picked up. Aizawa looked at all of his students as they lowered their heads down out of shame and regret, one that Aizawa felt that they didn't deserve. After Izuku had finished with the call, Detective 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗁 headed back to the police station to find any evidence that could link them to Midoriya's whereabouts, but not before throwing a disgusted look at the rest of the UA staff for their misbehavior of trusting those idiots' kids he called his student. After the detective is gone, Aizawa quickly rounded up everyone and they all get a stern lecture from both Aizawa and Principal Nizu himself for manipulating the whole school to send their classmate to a path of villainy. I'm with Sho on this. I think it would be better for all of us if we just expelled these kids straight away and be done with it. 𝗵𝗃 backs his friend at the argument. That's not fair. 𝗎𝙧𝗍𝗪 chimes in. We had evidence. Kirishima interrupted. You saw. Your evidence is nothing but fiction at this point. You set Midoriya on a path of villainy at this moment and you have nothing to blame other than yourself. It's not our fault that Deku is just too weak to be a villain in the first place. Katsuki roared in retaliation when suddenly he got smacked in the head by Aizawa-sensei really hard, causing everyone to look in shock at his action. Katsuki himself looked stunned after getting his head slapped like that. Aizawa-sensei is a lot of things. He likes to threaten his class with expulsion, flaring his quirk for intimidation, and sending his class to detention. But never had they seen Aizawa-sensei getting physical with a student. Even 𝗵𝗃, who's been friends with him since middle school, also looked surprised. You falsifying evidence to use against the public and sway their opinion just because you want to get rid of him from the perfect little empire you call class. His victims BLD, his next victims is BLD, Ishido's BLD, they not on his hand, they're on your hands now. Mentioning Mina's name is a low blow for Aizawa to use, but he's already at the peak of his emotion right now. Seeing that his class is still able to act with the higher ground is simply the fact that his class is not the hero he once saw to be. All of you will be in detention for 3 months. Scrubbing the entire school and dorms at night. And after you finished with your detention, I don't want to see you at my class ever again. What? Find someone willing to teach you, but I'm done with all of you. Leave UA if you want. Find another school to accept you, but don't ever come to me for help, cause the way I see it right now, none of you deserve to stay at UA, let alone to be a hero in the first place. Aizawa then took his leave out of the dorm, not wanting to stare at any of his students 1 second longer than he already has. We as the whole teacher will cooperate with the police and pro-heroes in bringing Izuku Midoriya to justice. But once he is captured by the heroes, you all will be expelled by UA and Detective Tsukachi will be handling your case by the law. The only reason why you're allowed to stay here right now is because if we send you all out of the school and Izuku ends up killing you all, that BLD will also be on our hands. Nizu said, finalizing the decision, and the teacher shot a disappointing glare at each one of them before they left the dorm. At the teacher's office, Aizawa sat on the floor with his back behind the wall right next to his desk, placing a hand over to his face while sobbing quietly. He knew that he F up. There's no sugarcoating it. 7 months ago, he sent one of his students to prison because of being suspected as a UA traitor. He didn't even bother to call Detective Tsukachi before or ask for anyone from his underground contact to help get the truth out of him. He just chose the easy way and sent Midoriya to prison under the excuse to keep his class safe. Aizawa can blame Bakugo Ida, his class, or anyone he wants, but deep down inside, he knew that he was the first to F up. He broke his students' trust and now he's out there performing his way of justice. And the first thing that he does is to cut off Ishido's head and send it to his class as a welcoming home gift. He could tell that Ishido was not Midoriya's endgame. The remaining 18 of his class is his endgame. He continued to wallow in sorrow when suddenly the door opened and he didn't look up to check who was in there, only to hear a clapping sound coming from the room. The clapping sound is slow, but by the sound of it, it sounds like it's made to ridicule him. There it is, folks. Namuri sarcastically clapped her hand. The one who brought justice to our grand institution 7 months ago. Mr. Logic himself, Aizawa Shoyuta, folks. Also known as Underground Hero, Eraserhead. Aizawa merely kept his head down and did not use this chance to get back at her. He didn't even bother telling her to stop clapping her hand or stopping her to ridicule him, since he deserved everything that was being thrown at him. He knows what's best for everyone here, folks. He understands what is necessary to keep his students safe. Disregarding feelings and emotion is the key to becoming the hero Eraserhead always envisioned you to be. Nothing but logic and facts, not caring if it's right or wrong. Namuri stopped with his clapping for a while and stood in front of Shoyuta, who was still sitting on the floor not looking up, keeping his head down. She looks down at the underground hero like he's a street beggar begging for a chump change. I told you so. I know, Namuri. I told you that you were in the wrong. But did you listen? No. Because I'm Shoyuta and I'm Mr. Always Right and I know what's best for my students by trusting them blindly. You were right, Nomuri. I told you so. Yes, you did. Izawa merely lowered his head, feeling that of all the SHT that's happening to his life, this is by far the most guilty he's ever been. Even the feeling of losing Oboro is nothing compared to this. If Oboro could see him right now, he's willing to believe that he would be disappointed with him. But right now, he's feeling like a sack of SHT. This is the file of Izuku Midoriya that's been going on since the time of his stay inside the school. Ectoplasm came to deliver the file to the meeting room consisting of Detective Tsukachi and the rest of the UA staff to learn more about Izuku Midoriya's time at school. As much as Tsukachi is pissed at all of them for sending the boy to Tartarus, he's willing to put his hatred aside and work together to bring Midoriya to justice. So they work together inside UA since this place is the moment where Midoriya's turning point began. So what do we know about the kid? Tsukachi asked, deciding to lead the conversation. That he's a brave kid with a good heart. Vlad spoke since he didn't know the kid very much. He's always a kid who seems pretty skittish to me. Powerloader said. His academic alone is good, but if we look at his middle school, he's studying very hard to make up for his lost grade. 𝗵𝗃 looked over to his report card. Let's see, mathematics, modern literature, hero history, heroic class, English. Wow, he's pretty good in English now that I take a good look. Snipe whistles at his report card, looking at the letter A on the subject. Yeah, the kid is pretty good when speaking in English. He even went so far as to study with Nomuri for other languages. Mike replied. Izawa looks over in her direction, remembering that she was an ace in other foreign languages when entering UA. Midoriya tends to come for me to have a private class. He always wanted to learn other foreign languages. He speaks in English. And all the Romance languages. Midnight smirks towards the other teachers. Russian, Spanish, Korean, Mandarin, French, a little bit of Italian. Dimon, the kid might as well become a nomad with how much language he can speak. Vlad King looks impressed himself. You have to admit that it's pretty cool. Powerloader chimes. No. Nizu's face turned darker with a grimace. It's worse than we ever thought. Nizu tossed a case file into his desk while wearing an exhausted look, one they find pretty rare when looking at the principal's face. I did some digging at Izuku Midoriya case file, and I find one particular note that I never dig a little deeper. And that is, he was in the same school as Katsuki Bakugo. Everyone looked a bit alarmed, knowing that Bakugo wasn't as much of a prize student as they all read it to be before they found out about him at UA. Izawa took the file from the desk to look at it first since it was his student. Turns out, there was an altercation with his file and his entire school record has been fabricated. Fabricated how? 𝗵𝗃 asked, feeling a sense of dread coming to his spine. Izawa pulls one of the files and reads it out loud. Katsuki Bakugo is a talented student in both academic and physical. Always lend a helping hand to those around him. Kind to his friends and teachers. A role model to everyone in school. Strong and versatile quirk. A valedictorian of 𝗎𝙪𝙢 Junior High. Perfect quirk for heroism. What? Mike asked, wondering if he had a hearing problem with what he just heard. The rest of the staff also had the same bewildered look. Izuku Midoriya is a troublemaker who always seeks attention inside the school. Always getting into a fight with other students. Cheating in class. Disobeying teachers during class. Causing a ruckus in school. Always getting into detention. Had a strong feeling of jealousy to a particular student such as Katsuki Bakugo. Izawa finished reading the file. Wait, what? Nomuri snatched the file from his hand and read it with her own eyes. Both of their files have been doctored, favoring Bakugo to allow him to enter UA and discredit Midoriya at the same time. I suspected that they tampered with his academic score just to downgrade him because they were thinking that quirkless students can't be smarter than quirked students. Wait, quirkless? Nizu took a glance at Izawa's seat, who had a surprised look since this was the first time he heard it. Didn't you read his file, Izawa? It was clear that his quirk manifested about a week before the entrance exam had begun. That's why I was putting the kid in your class instead of Vlad, so you could help him regain better control of his new quirk. But it turns out that you disobeyed my order right from the start. I didn't. Aizawa spoke in regret, not knowing that Midoriya is a boy with an entirely new quirk instead of what he suspected, a spoiled kid who could get away by sheer force and skating all the way through school. Well, what a surprise. Nomuri throws another jab of insult at him. We misread the sign thinking that was a rivalry, but it turns out it's a case of abuser and victim. We never even bothered to check on the school report and conduct a thorough background check on each student. Nizu said in regret, knowing that he had a hand in this whole matter. That's why he lacked confidence during the first year, because he always felt threatened by the abuser who was sitting in front of him during class, and we never even bothered to punish Bakugo's behavior or even send him to detention, Vlad said in exasperation. And we paired him with the abuser on so many occasions, including the final exam where he was supposed to work together. Aizawa finished the sentence, placed his hand over to his head, and stared at his desk, knowing that he F up. Nice. Midnight chimed in with sarcasm in her tone, since right from the start only she and Snipe truly believe he's innocent. But it doesn't make any sense. How was someone born as a late bloomer at the age of 15 in the first place? I never heard such a case before in all my life. Ectoplasm wonders. Most late bloomer case goes only at the age of 7 or 8 sometimes, but never had we seen someone at the age of 15 in the first place. 13 added. Well, I think that Toshinori can answer that question himself. Nizu's head tilts in his direction, causing everyone to look at the skinny skeleton man for explanation. Toshinori glances to his left and right, feeling that all eyes are on him now and seeing that there's no way that any of them are going to believe the lie that's coming to his mouth, since Principal Nizu was present anyway. He knows that the only way out is to tell them the truth. He owed that to his successor for not believing him in the first place when he was declared the traitor. So Toshinori decides to tell him everything. From the moment he met young Midoriya, saving him from the sludge villain, to how he saves young Bakugo from the same sludge villain that escaped from his grasp. How he offers his quirk called One for All and he accepts it and spends the last 10 months before UA entrance exam to train his boy. How he became a mentor for him and everything. To the point that he asked his successor to return his quirk after he was declared a UA traitor and handed the quirk to young Bakugo. It took about a full half an hour for him to explain everything, and the facial expressions of all the teachers filled with shock and surprise at nothing but a statement for all of them. You idiot. Aizawa snapped the first. This was the angriest Toshinori had ever heard him. Do you not realize that your secret has caused all of us to misread his situation? If I had known, but Toshinori felt a swell of irritation at the other man's words. You would have what? What you would have done? He demanded, suddenly annoyed. You wouldn't have expelled him. He remembered Aizawa's little quirk assessment all too well. He knew the man had been intentionally targeting his boy because of what he had seen at the entrance exam. His boy had pulled through at the last minute, but that didn't make it better. He hears nothing but silence on the other end. Toshinori sighed heavily after confirming it. You would have. I'm worried about young Midoriya being in your class for that very reason, Aizawa. You were willing to expel him with a quirk as strong as his. Do you mean to tell me that you wouldn't have thrown him out of UA if you learned he had previously been quirkless? And your next choice of successor is that dog that you saw as his rival. Midnight shouts, not caring for her lack of mannerism or her highlighted insult. I didn't know at that time. Had I known what young Bakugo did to young Midoriya in the last 10 years before entering UA, I would have never offered him my quirk, let alone allowed him to enter the school. Toshinori tries to defend himself. So the kid is quirkless. Not to sound harsh, but how much trouble is he gonna be for the police to capture him? Vlad King asked, wondering why everyone seemed to jump up. It's not his quirk that makes him dangerous. Aizawa admitted, it's his intelligence and adaptability. What are you talking about? Vlad King asked, since he didn't know much about Izuku himself. His analyst. He's already a good fighter right from the start. We've done quirkless sparring on the first year before a couple of times and he's one of the best. He says as he stands up from the ground, staring at the table. But his analyst is the reason. That's what makes him. He chokes on the word for a moment. Scary. If I had to make a description, his martial arts skill is also on par with mine. Izawa went on to explain, and that was counting out without his private session with Snipe. Wait, Snipe. Power Loader turns his attention to the gun hero sitting in front of him. The kid is a natural when it comes to firearms. I once caught him on a gun range practicing with an air pistol and surprise, surprise, he hit the bullseye on every target. I thought the kid was funny, so I let him hang around once he told me what happened. Figured it couldn't hurt to have some company while I shot off a couple of rounds, so I gave him some earmuffs and started showing off a little. Kids love that sort of thing. Anyway, eventually he gets the nerve to ask me if he can fire a few shots, and I thought, hell with it, I'm a teacher, it's my area of expertise, and if he's a skin me instead of just grab bin it, then he's at least got some head on his shoulders. Kid picks up the gun, listens to my instructions, and you know where that first shot goes. Everyone shrugged, expecting some grand end to this tale, not expecting to see Snipe lean back and bark a laugh up, pointing his finger in a gun manner and aiming it at the wall. He aimed at a small hole center at the practice target paper on each one. 6 bullets are entering the hole perfectly without missing an inch. Snipe spoke with great admiration. Truth be told, had the kid entered the second year, I would have wanted to take him under my wing and offered him an internship to be my sidekick. I probably would have offered him a spot at my agency after graduation. So what you're saying is that UA had made him into the ultimate quirkless hero who's proficient with firearms and expert in hand-to-hand combat, multilingual in at least 7 different languages, not to mention that he has a high level of intelligence, able to analyze a hero's quirk in less than a minute to figure out their weakness, and he's completely adaptable with fighting and concealment. Ectoplasm mentions each point, trying to grasp the reality of their situation. And we painted him to be the UA traitor, and he's out for BLD for his classmate for being pushed to his limits. Power Loader added. The rest of the teacher groans, knowing that they might as well push the kid off to the path of villainy, knowing that this whole mess is started because they blindingly trusted Izawa's class in the first place. They shouldn't have jumped the gun so quickly. They should have found some way to prove the kid's involvement is true or not. Smooth move, boys. Midnight speaks in sarcasm. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 then receives a call from his subordinates, and he picks up his phone to listen to the call. The detective then listened to it before his face turned into a dreaded look as everyone saw it, wondering what news the detective heard at the end of the call that managed him to make that kind of face. Okay, thanks. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 ends the call before turning his attention to the rest of them. I just got off the phone with my subordinates asking some questions with the head jailer of Tartarus. Turns out, Midoriya does have a few enemies while inside of Tartarus. Enemies? Toshinori took notice of the mention of enemies, which is more than one. The kid is a former student of the prestigious hero school in Japan, and we put him with tons of criminals. You do the math. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 quipped. Turns out, the kid always gets into a fight with the other inmates and gets sent into the infirmary 3 times in just the first month. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 reported and noticed the discomfort look on the other teachers' faces. Midoriya always gets into the fight until the second month, where someone stood up for the kid and the kid retaliates and fought back with the other inmates instead. So who's this mysterious savior of his? Snipe asked, wondering about the identity. I think you all knew him. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 showed the name of the prisoners' list of Midoriya's cell wing. And their cell was right next to each other. Everyone looks at the paper consisting of the prisoner's name and inmate number with the number of each prisoner's cell number, and they find Midoriya's name with the number 34, and they recognize his neighbor in the cell 33. Kaizomi Akaguro, aka the hero killer Stain. 𝗧𝗏𝗁 sits inside an interrogation room of Tartarus prison while waiting for the guards to bring one of the inmates to have a conjugal visit with him. The detective seems to act all restless with the situation, especially since he's about to have a live audience, the infamous hero killer himself. He knows that right now, he seems to be at a dead end with the Izuku Midoriya case itself, but now, he seems to at his end, and the only person who could provide him with such information happens to be the man whose they wanted to keep far away from the population. The door is opened and 2 guards come in carrying the infamous hero killer on his prison jumpsuit while his hands and legs are being cuffed. Soon the guards sat him up in the chair and cuffed his legs on the floor and his hands on the table so that he couldn't move away. Once the preparation is finished, the guard decides to leave him to have a private conversation with 𝗧𝗏𝗁. Do I know you? Stain asked, trying to break the silence between them. No, you don't. 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 spoke in his professional tone. My name is Detective 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 from the 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗵𝗃 Police Department. I'm here to ask you for information about a certain inmate. Stain walks into his seat with a soft chuckle, almost like he figured out the reason why the detective is here to see him. And let me take a wild guess. That same inmate happens to be Izuku Midoriya, correct? Stain replied, causing 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 to break off from his professional mask. I know why you came here. Now tell me, detective, how does it feel to know that a bunch of brats is a reason why you have a loose killer in the city? 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 grunts, wondering how he knew about it, and yet the news of Ishido's death is already spreading like wildfire. The guards, they said that you defend the kid on the first week. Care to tell me why you did that? 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 decides to ask. Not really. To be fair, I only know that the kid is trapped there because of the ruckus created by some inmate here. And you didn't even know that the kid is staying right next to your cell. I never left my cell unless I had things to do. And from what I've heard, the kid also likes to stay in his cell. Until you did. One of the inmates was yelling and shouting while I was trying to get good sleep, so I woke up and decided to give a piece of my mind when suddenly I spotted that kid who got beat up by the inmate. Izuku Midoriya. Stain replied, mentioning Izuku's name, causing 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 to slightly tense. So I helped the kid, beat up some of the inmates, scare them off, and the kid is away from trouble. Stain said, I asked the kid, wondering why the one I view as a true hero is locked up along with the inmates, and you know what he said. 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 kept his silence, allowing Stain to continue with the stories. He said that the hero suspected him to be a traitor, and he suspected that his friends were the ones who planted the evidence. Of course, I was a bit suspicious since I saw one or two of his classmates at the time. But when he starts to tell me about it, explains to me about their behavior the last time he saw them, the more I believe that this kid is framed. And you never bothered to tell the guards about it. Look around you, detective. You think these people will believe a word coming out of us? 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 knows that deep down he was right. None of the inmates would even bother to believe except for him who had a lie detector quirk. So I talk with the kid, and he starts to tell me that his life is filled with nothing more but suffering and futility. I didn't talk, just listened to the boy kept rambling and talking about how he started to lose his faith in the heroes, with your system. So I offered the kid my assistance. What do you mean assistance? 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 asked. The kid had a drive. And he starts saying that the first thing he wants to do is to get revenge on his class. I thought that he wanted to expose them for who they are, but it's much more than that. The kid, he wants me to teach him everything I know about fighting. 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 starts to sweat despite the air conditioner in the room is working perfectly. His sweat starts to drip from his forehead, dreading to know. I was once against it, not liking the fact I had to share my knowledge with some random kid that I happened to like, but then I saw in his eyes the drive, the hatred, the conviction that's deep into his eyes. It's almost like a strong steel waiting to be forged into a weapon. So I grabbed the hammer and started to forge it into a weapon. You expect us to believe that you would teach a 15-year-old kid how to become a cold-blooded vigilante? To teach everything you know about combat and everything? 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 slammed his desk, refusing to believe it despite his quirk telling that Stain has been telling the truth. Oh, not a vigilante, detective. The kid itself is already a natural. Everything that I have learned in all these years, he absorbed like a sponge in almost 6 months. What I taught him at that time, let's just say that I gave him a gold star in assassination. You're mad. 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 spats. Am I? You're a known detective with a lie detector quirk. Are you telling me that you didn't hear about the bullshit that you heard from your office or the society daily? Society is now filled with too many lies and bullshit. Just like how a child can easily lie to a parent, those fake heroes they called his class can easily lie to their teacher into believing that boy is the actual traitor. Stain counters with a sense of anger. But that doesn't mean I didn't know what I was creating. After all, you ignorant heroes are the main reason why that kid is now on the loose, because of the corrupt foundation that you people have been building on. Stain said, ending the conversation as he started to get up and called the guards to bring him back to his cell, leaving a stunned 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗁 on the table. Izuku stood on the rooftop of an agency while admiring the view of the city. He stood tall, wearing a dark green bomber jacket with a black shirt underneath. In his right hand, he carries a metal briefcase before he opens it, showing a Barrett Model 98 Bravo sniper rifle. He took his position on the building and aimed his rifle at an apartment building. Using a thermal image scope, he aims at the apartment building in front of him and uses the thermal function to determine his target on the apartment building before he sees a person coming in from the apartment. He opened his phone, pressed a button call on his phone, and returned his eyes to the scope. He watches as the target comes into the kitchen to drop off their belongings, heads to the living room, and heads to the telephone before picking it up. The caller's voice rings through Izuku's ear from his phone, and Izuku pulls the trigger. Bang! The shot pierces right through the glass window, hits the target, and drops to the floor. Izuku then cleared off the area before he placed his rifle back into the case and walked away from the rooftop, clearing all of the evidence that he was ever there. Katsuki woke up in the dorm looking all tired and battered up, unable to sleep. After their plan gets discovered by that plain-faced detective along with the hobo teacher, all of them aren't allowed to stay in the school any longer since they were such a disgrace according to what that hobo teacher has to say. None of them can enjoy their day as usual, as now they were being ostracized by the whole teacher staff. He had no idea if the teachers had already told the whole school or not, but that doesn't change the fact that their life is turned into a pile of SHT, all because of that Deku. He pushed himself into walking a second later, intending to go downstairs and find something to eat and see how things would go from here and how things would continue to go from bad to worse for him. As he continued to make his way downstairs, he saw a few of his classmates watching the TV news and allowed himself to see what the topic they were talking about right now. His eyes widened a bit when he saw what it was. 𝗵𝘃𝗵𝗃 president found dead at her apartment. Her body was found with a bullet hole pierced at her head. What the F? Katsuki muttered under his breath, who gets heard by the others who are watching. Jirou shushed her to keep quiet as they continued to listen to the news. Detective 𝗬𝗂𝗁𝗍, who is believed to be in charge of the investigation, could not be reached for comment. The reporter announced, "This is a disaster. 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗍𝗧. Isn't she the lady we saw when Deku was said to be the traitor?" Uraraka points to the picture of her face on the television. "Quiet, we're trying to listen." Jirou shushed her. Nor has the Mizutofu Police Department issued a statement on the matter, but it is believed that this mysterious gunman is responsible for the death of MDM president of the HPSC, as people began to call this mysterious gunman the Ghost Killer. The reporter shows a picture of her before she was found dead. A witness in the area reported seeing the gunman with a green hair on the rooftop resembles Izuku Midoriya, the said traitor of UA. The question under investigation today is, was former UA hero student Izuku Midoriya responsible for her death and the rumored ghost killer? Not wanting to hear the news any longer, Shoto, who's the closest to the remote, turns off the television right away as the rest of the class who's on the first floor watches with grimace in their face. Muted gasps are heard around the room. Katsuki can tell everyone is freaking out, some even seem to be sweating. Everyone seems to be deep in thought for a moment. Questions are probably running through their heads. Guys, isn't she the one who finalizes the paper that Deku is indeed the traitor? Toru asked around. Yeah, I saw him coming out from the principal office at the time. It's definitely her. Ida confirmed. Do you think he's coming? Deku, is he coming for us all? Shiro asked around looking for some form of answer. It's fine, right? Kirishima speaks up. Some take a moment to glance in his direction, and some don't even move. His face is clenched into worry. It's just that Deku, right? He points out, rubbing the back of his head, looking up from the coffee table he was staring at. Yeah. Toru agrees, her clothes shifting slightly, and she seems to be standing up. And he's quirkless. If we ever run into him, wouldn't it be easy to catch him? A beat of silence takes over. Plus, we need to find him right now. We can't allow that useless to blab about our plan before, Sato argues, and a few of them nod in agreement. You all can't be serious. Leaning on the door to the side, Shinszo's eyes seem to be burning with rage, the tired, purple eyes narrow. You're underestimating him. He walked over to one of the side chairs. Leaning over it, Jirou jumped at the sudden movement behind her. Shinszo, why are you here? Kaminari glances over to see the purple-haired boy walking here unannounced. Thought I came to look around, to see the some who sold their friend down in the ditch. His face turns into anger, spitting venom on each word. Wait, it's not. You expect me to believe a word you said when Izuku-sensei had explained everything in full detail. The group fell into silence after hearing the word coming from the purple-haired kid, knowing that their act had already been busted at this point. It's only a matter of time before everyone soon learns of their involvement. The way you act, underestimating him like this, it's gonna get people killed, it's gonna get you killed. Are we though? Jirou speaks up. She's staring off to something on the side, fiddling with her hands, her mouth is pressed in a fine line. She chuckles sadly for a moment. Are we? He is quirkless. It's not like, her eyes flick back, gazing around the class. He could take on most of us in a fight. The class looked unconvinced. Well, I don't. Ida begins to speak up, but Shinszo cuts him off fast. Are you guys that stupid? He scoffs, eyes glaring at the class. They look surprised by his laugh. He lived with you all for 2 goddamn years, how are you guys not scared? Everyone looks around for a moment. He knows everything about you all. Your families, your friends, your relationship, your secrets. He turns to stare at Kaminari and Jirou, who are sitting next to each other. He knows your strengths and your weaknesses, what you love and hate. You saw in that notebook you were so afraid of. That Demon Deku will die in my hands. You hear me, you purple freak. Katsuki roared in anger, shouting at the top of his lungs. Sure, that's why he was able to kill Ishido under your nose and everyone at the mall. Now where were you again at that time? Busy making out with Midoriya's ex-girlfriend. Because we will be safe under the name of a hero called King Explosion Murder. Shinszo scoffs, causing Katsuki to jump at him, trying to land a right hook only to get stopped by Sato, who jumps and captures him in a bear hug. Let go of me, you big lips. I need to teach that mind freak a lesson. Katsuki grunts, thrashing himself, trying to let himself go, but Sato doesn't budge or let go. Yeah, you all who framed him as the traitor in the first place will be the ones who brought him to justice. Good luck. Shinszo scoffs at his remark before he slowly walks away, leaving the dorm. Nizu and the rest of the staff gathered at the teacher's office after hearing about the death of the HPSC president. None seemed to have anything to say since they knew what that was all about. This was nothing but a message. Izuku's expulsion letter was being signed not only by Principal Nizu but also by the HPSC to fully terminate Izuku Midoriya's hero license at the time. And now, she's the first one to go other than Ishido. This is a mess, Mike said, his voice lacking his usual power. Understatement of the century. Midnight replied, now the old bat that signed the death of his reputation is buried 6 feet under. I just got off the phone with Tsukachi. He had his little chat with Stain, and turns out he did teach Midoriya everything there is to it. Midoriya has officially gone rogue. Aizawa announced. Oh my god. Ectoplasm groaned. That's not the worst part, Aizawa replied, withholding certain information left. And what is? Snipe asked. Turns out, a day after Izuku Midoriya escaped Tartarus, a local gun store in Chiba got robbed. Almost a quarter of the store items got robbed, including a particular rifle. Let me guess, Barrett Model 98 Bravo. Snipe guessed. That's correct. How? Aizawa looks around wondering if Snipe had any idea of it. It matches with the ballistic that the police found on her corpse. That's the only rifle that I know in Japan that matches with the bullet. Snipe replied, what else is missing in there? A couple of boxes of ammo for the rifle, half a dozen pistols with all of the clips matches. Body armor, hunting knife, flash grenades, smoke grenades, incendiary grenades, holster for the sidearms, silencers, binoculars, thermal image, night scope, bear trap, tripwire. Everything he needed to hunt people on day and night or to start a small-scale war. Aizawa replied with an exhausted tone. My boy, Toshinori muttered under his breath, looking all guilty knowing that this was his fault. Had he believed in his successor and stayed by his side, then none of those people would have died. Midnight quickly interjects. So what should we do? We just can't sit around. She comments, looking at the others for help on the matter. Hide the families, hide the UA students, lock down the whole school, go on a whole search for him, 𝗵𝗃𝗃 says, growling. I still don't believe we should be so scared of a quirkless kid. A quirkless kid with Stain training him. Midnight yells out, staring down Vlad. Oh, we don't know that. Vlad counters, so he's a former hero, big deal, we can easily capture him. You're skipping over a huge word there. And what's that? Former. Aizawa spoke up, to which everyone turned to him, former hero. Former UA student. Former one for all user. Out of everyone we ever face, he's probably the most dangerous opponent we ever will face in our careers. Hisashi went to ask, why is that so? The kid is a natural prodigy. He can easily analyze quirks during a fight and find a way to counter them. And from what Tsukachi said, the kid took the shot to assassinate MDM president from 700 yards away and hit the bullseye to her head. He likes to hide, he likes to hunt. This guy, he's on the offense. Aizawa commented, showing just how serious this turns out to be. A student with a killer mentality that trains under UA and hero killer. This might be the biggest and most dangerous foe that we ever faced. So I suggest that all of you don't underestimate him. We're not underestimating him, but I'm just saying how much trouble is this kid gonna give. Unknown to him, Izuku hears the conversation happening in the office as they speak. In the dark room, Izuku placed a headset over to his ear to listen through the conversation. He slightly chuckled at 𝗵𝗃𝗃's comment at the fact that he was slightly underestimated, but if he wanted to be honest, he wanted to be underestimated so that it would be much easier to eliminate the rest of the class, but thanks to Eraserhead, now the staff is on full alert. Now who should I go next? Izuku looks over to the wall and finds the whole wall is covered with pictures of the entire class individually and UA staff with dart holes in every picture. The picture of Mina and MDM president is also on the wall, having a knife on it, and the picture is already crossed. He draws his knife, throws it at the wall, and hits at one of the pictures. Guess you wanna die first, huh? Kaminari is busy scrubbing the floor of the UA class at night with a toothbrush, grunting and grumbling at the predicament he's currently at right now. Normally he would have been sleeping or playing video games, lying on his bed looking at his phone, but now he was here busy cleaning every inch of the UA floor in the middle of the night while being supervised by the UA robot. Because of the news leaked about their involvement in framing Midoriya, the whole class is being punished severely by Aizawa, and the first act that he chooses for them to do is to clean every inch of the hallway, separating the whole class into different places so they can't be having a conversation with each other. Kaminari scrubbed the toothbrush on the floor tirelessly, wanting to get himself a good night's sleep or take a 5-minute break, but unfortunately, the robot kept ringing some sort of alarm that echoed through the hallway every time one of them stopped working, and those who happen to be in an earshot tends to yell at the robots to make it stop. He was just about to move to the next tile when the robot turned his alarm, ending their shift for the day. Kaminari stretched his arms and legs in relief, knowing that finally time to head back to the dorm. He walked towards the hallway where he would meet with Jirou, who just finished working on the hallway as well. "Oh, Jirou, you here too?" Kaminari waved his hand at her. "Yeah, I was just about to head back anyway." Jirou walks in while stretching her arms. "Cool, you wanna head back together?" Kaminari sheepishly asked. "Sure, why not?" Jirou replied, and they both walked together. Both of them walked side by side, not having any idea what to talk about here. Kaminari is trying to make some form of conversation here, but he seems to have zero ideas on what to talk about. He knew that she liked to hear music and play some instrument, so he guessed that he could make some topic out of it so that the atmosphere wouldn't get any weirder than it had. "So, I heard that you were playing yesterday night," Kaminari said, trying to make some conversation. "Huh." Jirou looks back. "I heard it right across the hall. You were playing pretty loud if you asked me." "You heard it?" She seems surprised that someone heard her play. "Yeah, I think Koda also hears it, but he didn't dare to tell you about it," he informed her. "Then, guess I owe him an apology." Jirou sheepishly replied. "I think that he won't mind about it." Kaminari joked around, causing Jirou to laugh at his joke. "Sorry man, got a lot on my mind lately, especially with the whole detention thing." She continued to walk as Kaminari walked right next to her. "I feel you. Wish we could just get out and do something. Getting pretty bored, to be honest, with things going on lately. Scrubbing the hallway, wiping the windows at night, cleaning the gutter." Yeah, wait, what about that new concert show that's about to show? You know, that famous DJ from America or something. That American DJ, Will Wells. I tried to get it booked but I missed out on the ticket. Oh, perhaps you want to come. I got an extra ticket if you are interested. Jirou then stopped with her track and turned his head at Kaminari with a surprised look. Are you asking me out? What? And no, I mean why yeah, but only if you want to. It's not like I asked you for a date, not that it's a date, more like a friend date and, hey, 𝗵𝗵𝗄𝗧𝗵𝗿. Slow down would you? She lightly slapped him in the head, calming him down. I would love to. Kaminari did a double take on what he had just heard. Did you say yes? To him. Oh okay, I'll text you. Okay then, 𝗵𝗵𝗄𝗧𝗵𝗿. She waved her hand goodbye, letting herself enter the doorway first while Kaminari stood in a starstruck situation, jiggling inside knowing that he just scored himself a date. Kaminari stood before the gate of UA waiting for Jirou to come for his date. He looks nervous but tries to keep his composure intact knowing that he's about to have his date with his crush. It took him about 30 minutes to get ready, 10 times longer than his usual self. Normally he would have just gone for short pants and a regular t-shirt that's available in his drawer, but right now, he's decided to dress up a little bit than he usually did, wearing a jacket and dressed in a more wild for such an event. He stood in front patiently waiting when finally he saw the purple rocker girl coming his way. Hey, sorry for the wait. Nah, I just came here too. Kaminari excused, even though he'd been waiting almost half an hour. Had to sneak in, didn't want people to find out just yet. Jirou fixed her hair, presenting herself to him. Sure, I mean we don't want to raise some questions, right? Kaminari blushed, looking all embarrassed. Why yeah, sure. Jirou followed as well. So you ready to go? Why yeah. Cool. She smiled at him. With most of the awkwardness finally out of the way, the young duo exited the building to go out and enjoy their evening. The short train ride over to their destination for the night was rather uneventful for Kaminari and Jirou. The two didn't know what to talk about other than regular school-related topics. There was a lingering sense of awkwardness in the air that neither knew how to approach. So for the time being, they sat next to each other in peaceful silence. In no time, two of them arrived at the concert venue with about 20 minutes to spare before the start of the show. By the time they showed up, the place was practically filled from wall to wall. Kaminari knew that Jirou's parents were a decently popular musical duo and she definitely liked this sort of event. But from the sheer number of people in attendance, he had a feeling that tonight's headliners were more popular than he had originally thought. Man, this place is packed. Jirou looked around with wide eyes. Seriously, there must be over 2,000 people in here. I don't even think we can get to our seats. Well, I guess it's a good thing that I got us these tickets, Kaminari said as he pulled out their tickets. You want to get something to eat first before we enter? Sure. Jirou nodded in agreement. So they both went out to the food stand and grabbed something to eat. Kaminari decided to go for a hot dog with fries and Jirou went for crepes with strawberry. Both of them took a seat near the booth and decided to enjoy their food. Man, you have no idea how long has it been since I went out like this, Kaminari replied, looking around the area, clearly tired of being cooped up inside of UA. I feel you, I used to come to this sort of event back when I was little, Jirou commented. Really? Yeah, my folks were musicians, so we tend to go on rock concert tours a couple of times. Wow, so you tend to travel around the world? Not yet, just a couple of places around Japan. But it's sort of fun, meeting new people, traveling around, hanging with my parents. But I always want to start my concert show one day, you know, having my name on the banner. Like these people. Kaminari nudges over to the crowd of concert people. Yeah, I mean it's kind of fun to, you know, going around. I meant I always want to go outside of Japan. Jirou said. Any preference? Kaminari asked, wanting to know. Maybe New York, America. Always want to go there. Jirou replied, mentioning her destination. Nice, you should follow your dreams then. Kaminari smiles, causing Jirou to slowly blush and get noticed by Kaminari. Soon the announcer starts to call out to the guests that the show is about to start, causing Jirou to suddenly rise from her seat. We should go. Don't want to get crowded when entering, right? Right, come on then, we better hurry. Hurry up, Kaminari, Jirou calls out with his name, which gets noticed by Kaminari, and he smiles, following her to walk inside the gate. Within a few minutes, the show was underway. The DJ wasted no time in giving the concert-goers what they wanted and put on the performance of a lifetime. From their spot a few meters behind the band, Jirou looked in amazement as the crowd quickly burst into a sea of energy that she was not prepared for. As she watched the audience move to the upbeat tempo of the song, Jirou decided that she wanted to join in on the fun. She let the beat of the drum and the riffs of the guitar resonate through her body, feeling her feet begin shifting from side to side. Although she wasn't much of a dancer, Jirou knew enough not to make herself look like a complete idiot. And it didn't take long before the earphone jack girl lost herself in the music. The movement of her feet was quickly mimicked by her hips, and then by her shoulders and arms. A not-so-subtle smile formed on her face. In his mind, Kaminari was enjoying the show. Watching her body move to the beat put the blonde-haired boy in somewhat of a trance. Although it was obvious that Jirou wasn't an expert when it came to dancing, the way she moved like an ever-flowing stream of water was certainly enough to lose focus on his surroundings. That was until he felt his date bump his hip with her own. "It's not fun if I'm the only one embarrassing myself here," Jirou said with a wink and a grin. "I am not much of a dancer." Kaminari sheepishly waved off, fiddling his thumbs between his fingers, feeling out of his element. "Neither am I. Come on, Kaminari." Jirou giggled before grabbing his hand and pulling him towards her. Onyx's eyes met green, and for a split moment, it felt like the world around them ceased to exist. Jirou took charge and began shifting her hips and shoulders from side to side, much like she had been doing before. Except this time, with every movement she pulled her date along for the ride. Kaminari was understandably nervous at first, but eventually he got with the program. The blonde-haired boy began copying her movements and let their bodies fall into sync. Both Jirou and Kaminari were sporting huge grins as the fast-paced tempo of the music along with the bass of the speakers got the BLD flowing. When the melodic tunes of the song ended, the two of them took a moment to catch their breath. Who knew dancing was so exhausting? See, now was that so bad? Jirou chuckled as she rested herself against the boy's shoulder, using the excuse of her momentary exhaustion as the chance to seize the opportunity to get close to him. Not at all. Kaminari laughed back with a fair amount of redness on his cheeks, clearly happy that they were sharing a moment. Good to hear, because we have another 2 hours of that to look forward to. She looked up to him with a grin. I guess we do. He smiled back at her. The DJ starts to play, reaching the climax of the show as everyone starts to gather near the DJ to dance closer, following the beat. People began to move toward the middle, causing people to bump at each other. One of them, who's a pretty large dude, didn't notice his way and started pushing, causing Kaminari to get pushed away from Jirou. " Jirou," Kaminari calls out, but the sound from the music and beat is simply too loud for her to hear. Kaminari tried to break free and push the guy in front, but clearly, he was drunk and much bigger than he was, which made it harder for Kaminari to break free. He tries to slip in and manages to break himself free despite the fact he has to push himself through, did his best to bob and weave through the sea of people. " Jirou," he calls out once more, but there's no sign of her at all. When he finally managed to get away, he lost sight of her from the dance floor. Kaminari tries to call her name over and over, but there's no sight of her dancing anywhere. He figures that she might also be looking for him, so he decides to stay where he is and looks around, hoping that she might come back also. Eventually, the show came to an end. After the show had ended, Kaminari decided to walk out of the venue, but even waiting at the front gate, Jirou is still nowhere to be found. He glances at every person who walks out, but he still has no idea where she could have been. He tried to call her cell, but she didn't pick up the call. He kept trying and sending her a message, and she still didn't read it. He started to get worried, wondering where she could have gone, when suddenly he received a text message from his phone. He hurriedly opens the phone to check if it's Jirou, only to find that it's not, but something more terrifying. It's a picture from an unknown number. He didn't recognize the number, but he didn't need to know the content of the message as it was shown to him loud and clear. It's a picture of Jirou tied up with her mouth covered in a cloth and a text message. "Enjoy the date." Nizu sits on the sofa of the UA dorm along with the rest of the staff while looking at Tsukachi's phone that's placed on the coffee table intensely. His face shows a great amount of discomfort knowing that this is counted as the second attack that Midoriya has dealt them with. After Kaminari received the text message, he hurriedly came back to UA and knocked over to the teacher's office hoping that someone was still there, which luckily that ectoplasm hadn't left because of a late-night paper grading. He quickly explained the situation where Jirou was kidnapped by Midoriya and sent him a message about her unconscious situation. Ectoplasm then called the other teacher to come and gather at Class A dorm where Ectoplasm also brought Kaminari to meet with the principal about the situation. Now the said principal is looking at the image attentively waiting for Izuku to make the call or announce something. He knew that he kidnapped Jirou not just so he could brag about it, there had to be some sort of ransom that he would call right about now and he wanted to know about it. "Principal, what is it?" Aizawa asked, worrying about his boss sitting there in silence for about 30 minutes. "You've been staring at that phone for a while now." "I know, Aizawa. I'm waiting for Midoriya to make the call." "How are you so sure that he will call us? He wouldn't just kidnap Miss Jirou without making some sort of ransom. There has to be a reason for it." The stairs began to bump loudly as the rest of Class A descended from there right away and walked towards the staff's direction. "Is it true? Did he kidnap Jirou?" Momo hurriedly asked. "I'm afraid that you're not on a known basis at the moment, Miss Yaoyorozu," 𝗍𝗓 replied. "Jirou is our friend. We had every right." Momo replied as the group gathered around Kaminari looking all distracted by the fact that Jirou was kidnapped because of him. If he hadn't invited her to go out, then Jirou would probably still be in the dorm right now. "Not at this moment. Now hurry up and get back to your room," Aizawa warned them before flashing his quirk for intimidation. "Forget it, I'm not gonna just buy and watch that Deku gets the better of me like this." Katsuki grunts in anger. Right away, the phone began to ring and 𝗍𝗓 quickly took it and pressed the answer button. "Hello, Principal," Izuku spoke, causing the white mammal to shudder, wondering how he knew that it was him that picked up the phone before he could say a word. "How do you know that it was me who picked up the call?" 𝗍𝗓 asked, wanting to know. "Oh, you really want to know, don't you?" He chuckled at his remark. "You have to forgive me. I don't like things that are outside of my knowledge." 𝗍𝗓 replied, trying to pry into the matter himself. "The frustration must be killing you right now." Izuku merely replied. "I assumed that you wanted to make some sort of demand." 𝗍𝗓 said since he knew that he wouldn't get anything out of Izuku. "So what is it? I'm sure we can work something out. Aren't you supposed to be the smartest mammal? You think I'll go for something simple like that?" Izuku scoffs at his assumption. "What I want is simply your time and presence." 𝗍𝗓 looked a bit agitated before he composed himself. "Well, you certainly have all of ours." "Good. Now before we continue, is there a possibility you could call Kakin to come? I need to talk to him." Izuku asked. Katsuki quickly stomps his way into the conversation. "I'm right here, Yuden Deku." "Nice, the man of the hour has finally arrived." Izuku chuckled. "Now, how are you feeling right now, Kakin?" "I'm pissed that you won't simply just stay down and accept your fate," Katsuki replied. "Should have taken my advice before entering UA." A few of the staff who overheard the conversation wondered what advice he talking about. "Oh, foul words coming from a future hero. Is UA didn't teach you any manner at all?" Izuku replied. "Thought you'd be happy and all that I just get rid of one person from reaching your destiny. You killed one of the class and you think I'll be happy? You were sick." Katsuki spits his words like some venom. "You know, I could take care of that for you," Izuku offered. Katsuki is somehow able to imagine the usual helpful look on his face. He hated that look. Once upon a time, it made him believe Deku thought him weak when he was just being nice. Katsuki honestly couldn't tell if it was the same now or the opposite. Deku appeared so genuine that Katsuki hesitated. But he didn't like where this was going. "What are you talking about, Deku? Come on, Kakin, isn't your dream to be the #1 hero in Japan? To surpass all might and become the best?" Izuku said excitedly. "People keep telling you that you'll be the best and all, but after coming to UA, can you say that confidently?" Katsuki didn't want to say out loud that he was wrong and knew that he was always the best, but evidently, it's not as easy as that. When it comes to academics, he was losing to both Ponytail and Four Eyes. If he's talking in quirk power, half and half is more powerful than he was. In social skills, 𝗕𝗂𝗁𝗧𝗏 is proven to be better. If he's talking about leadership skills, 𝗕𝗂𝗁𝗧𝗏 or Four Eyes had proven themselves to the class. How many people have gone your way ever since you came to UA? One class. The whole first year. You should be happy that Ishido is already gone. One less competition for you before you reach the top like you always wanted to. I'm even willing to bet that with me out of the way, you were happy that you finally managed to get rid of me and prove that you were superior in every way to me, right? Deep down inside, you wanted them all gone. The words coming out of his mouth were so terrible, so out of place, so wrong that Katsuki took an involuntary step back. He'd never done that with Deku before. He always pushed himself forward. The only time he had even come close to this was after the conclusion of their first fight during their combat training simulation at UA. The shock of experiencing Deku's quirk and finding out everything he thought he knew was wrong had thrown him off. This new Deku and his flip between casual and excited threats of violence made Katsuki feel as if he'd been hit by his girlfriend's zero-gravity quirk and he was floating in space with no idea of when he would come down. Cut the CRP, would you? Now what do you want? Katsuki shakes it off, trying to find out why he was looking for him in the first place. I assume that you appointed yourself as the leader of this conversation now. Izuku asked. Yeah, I'm calling the shots here. Good. That's good. Then, as the one who calls the shots, I simply wanted you to make a choice here. What choice? We knew that being a hero is simply tough. You had not only to battle villains but also make some tough calls. And here's where we will test that. Izuku then switched the call to a video call, grabbed his phone and directed it to Jirou's seat, who was having her mouth covered and tied up behind the chair, and a woman who was 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗏, being tied up in a similar situation to Jirou. They quickly connect the phone to the television in the room to get a better view. The staff and the remains of Class A watched in horror as Izuku walked behind them and showed them a gun in his hand, aiming at the two of them. You will make a decision right now, Bakugo. Izuku cocks his gun, confirming that it was loaded. You had two options, Jirou, your classmate that you spent almost a year together in UA, or a 7 months 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗏 lady who you didn't recognize at all. The only way to save one of them is to make a public statement to everyone in Japan about your action along with the class to frame me and send me to prison. The video link for the announcement will be sent to this phone, which will be put live on every media in Japan. I will not accept any statement other than from Kaken. Any others who tried to volunteer in his place will be counted invalid. Exciting, isn't it, imagining how it got there? Everyone, if Kaken calls me in the next minute, one of them lives. Go. Izuku said, starting the 60-second countdown. Everyone looked at each other with an uneasy eye, wondering if his threat was to be taken lightly. All Might is the first one to react. Is he serious with all of this? I think so, his eyes, it looks ready to take a life. Snipe looked through the image, noticing there was no hesitation inside of him. This can't be fake or a bluff. He's really gonna do it. Damn it, this is bad. Bakugo, click that link right now. We can worry about the decision to save them both later on. Aizawa told him to do it, handing the phone to him. But Bakugo didn't show any signs that he'll take the phone before he speaks. No. What? No, Deku is bluffing. He's not gonna shoot ears or anyone there. Katsuki replied. The first one to react, however, is not Aizawa, Principal Nizu, or even All Might. It was Kaminari. Are you serious right now? That wouldn't have the ball to kill people, let alone threaten me. He's not gonna kill ears or that woman. Kaminari looks enraged by the ashen blonde attitude of disregarding Jirou's safety. He grabbed over to his shirt and pulled him up close. And how did you know for sure? Are you seriously gonna play with Jirou's life like this? Get off me, dunce face. Katsuki pushed Kaminari off the ground, letting him fall on the floor. Kaminari. Momo hurriedly ran over to help him. That Tyu is bluffing, all right. I won't let him beat me, let alone crack me like this. After the argument, it only left them with less than 10 seconds of their time as everyone watched in silence for a few seconds, knowing they were running out of time. Everyone had no idea whether Midoriya was bluffing or not, but they were hoping that deep down he is. Finally, after the time is closed for a full minute, Izuku points his gun and shoots Jirou in the head. Bang! Jirou! Kaminari yelled out. His voice rang through the living room before he dropped to his knees wailing and sobbing. Momo, who's next to him, also cried knowing that her best friend had died right in front of her and she was powerless to stop him. Her body loses all strength before she slumps down with holes in her head. Katsuki watched the shootout in front of him with wide eyes and mouth agape as he was left all stunned, not moving at all. He didn't think that Deku would do that. He thought he was bluffing, trying to force a confession out of him. But it turns out he was dead serious and killed ears. Even though his eyes were facing the screen, he could feel all the gaze from his class locked into the back of his head. There's one less person now that's standing in your competition now, Kakin. You should be happy not to look like deer in the headlights. Izuku said, showing his face through the camera. You killed her, you killed ears, Katsuki muttered shakingly. Come on, surely you saw this coming, you know. Izuku replied, one more BLD is on your hands now. Her death that's on your hand. No, it was you, he spoke shakingly, trying to convince that he wasn't in the wrong. That it was Deku's fault like always. You could say whatever you want to convince yourself that you're in the right, but I gave you a choice. I offered you the chance to admit and you simply just threw it off the ground like trash. She's dead, that's because of your ego. Because you're selfish, Kakin. Izuku grabbed the phone to glance over to the class, trying to get a better look at them. This is hardly the end of all of your suffering. So run away, hide, and kiss your parents and loved ones goodbye. Because nothing, not your heroes, not your red, blue, and yellow attack dog, can save you. Now, like I said to Kakin, you never see the bullet that takes you down. He ends the call straight away, leaving nothing but a broken atmosphere with a stunned Katsuki and Kaminari who are wailing on the floor about the death of Jirou. The class fell into a deafening silence, one that none of them could ever predicted before. They have never felt this kind of emptiness since the day of Mina's death befall them, and yet her loss still felt up until this day. Now they had to say goodbye to another one of them. Kaminari sobs onto the floor looking all defeated, blaming himself for what happened to her, thinking if he didn't invite her to go on a date with him, then 𝗓𝗏 might still be alive. Momo stood beside him trying to pick himself up from the ground while crying to herself, knowing that her best friend was just being killed right in front of her like that. The blonde-haired kid finally gathered enough strength and picked himself up with Momo's help. He kept staring at the carpet floor before he lifted his head and locked eyes with the explosion quirk user standing a few feet away from him and came walking towards him and delivered a strong jab to his face. Katsuki falters to the ground as he looks in shock to see that he punches him like that. The hell? What the hell is matter? Don't you go act like a deuce, Bakugo. It's your fault that Jirou is dead. You killed her. Kaminari roared in anger with tears coming from his eyes. Are you blind and dumb? Deku is the one that pulled the trigger. But you could have stopped her. You could have just told him what he wanted to hear. You played with her lives like she was meant nothing. Kaminari gritted his teeth and charged at Katsuki as he delivered a strong punch, once more slamming him into the pillar behind the wall. All the students and teachers were watching as they were trying to put a stop to it. Kaminari, that's enough. Kirishima pulled Kaminari off Bakugo, holding him in his arms so he wouldn't attempt to punch him again. Look at him. He doesn't even feel remorse or anything. He's gonna played with all of our lives. Kaminari lies breathless as the electric quirk user continues to hurl and scream before he is pulled away by Aizawa-sensei, who placed his hand over to his shoulder and continued to scream at Bakugo. It took midnight to fully sedate him with her quirk before ectoplasm brought him to Recovery Girl's office to check for any signs of trauma. It's possible that he suffered a trauma shock or PTSD from Jirou's death. Alright, now I won't be saying this again for the second time, so listen up, Aizawa said in a stern voice, gaining the attention of his class. With 2 of your classmates already gone, it's sufficient to say that none of you are allowed to get out of the school premises at this point. While none of you are my students any longer, you still living in this place, and it's still our responsibility to keep everyone in the school safe. So we're staying in the dorms. Ida confirms. Yes, I don't want to see you lurking in the hallway except during the night. But if we find you trying to sneak out like what Kaminari did, we won't be held responsible for anything that's fallen upon you. What? Uraraka looks in shock at his choice of words. I told you beforehand that I don't want to see you at my class, meaning that you're no longer my students. If you want to take your chance out there, then that's not my problem, but anything that happens, 𝗬𝗧𝗍 won't be held responsible for it. Izuku informed them with a stern voice. Izuku then took his leave along with the rest of the staff as he left with a pained expression on his face. Even though he was furious with his class and manipulated everyone to be wrongly imprisoned by Midoriya in the first place, he couldn't help but feel that Midoriya was doing this on purpose to bring down his class one at a time. He felt so utterly useless right now. His class is being picked off one by Midoriya because of what they did, and even though his anger is justified, killing a student is considered to be a crime, and Midoriya is now gone from a vigilante to a serial killer at this point. He has to find him, and he needs to bring him to justice so that no one will ever fall victim to his cause ever again. After they were heading out of the Class A dorm, Nizu held an emergency meeting regarding the death of 𝗕𝗁𝗅 on a live video call that Izuku made. The sound of that pistol fired still echoes deep inside their ears as they can't believe that this is happening right now. They all know that Izuku Midoriya is responsible for killing Mina Ashido and chopping off her head, but to think that he won't even show any hesitation to fire a gun and shoot Jirou in the head just like that proves just how far he was being pushed to the edge. Nizu held a pensive look in his face, trying to find words to address the situation. I guess that settles it. Izuku Midoriya, he's really killed her. Vlad King said under his breath. Despite the other staff having been heroes for quite a time, they still had a hard time believing that Izuku Midoriya could kill a person. This is my fault, my boy, what have I done? Toshinori silently cried over the table with his head lowered to the ground, blaming himself for what happened. Having the room too grim for any discussion, Present Mike decided to ask about the elephant in the room. What about her body? We can't just leave it like that, we have to find it. And we will, but right now we don't tell the media about it. Don't want to alarm the civilians knowing that there's an out-of-BLD vigilante on the street. Izuku spoke in a low tone. Wait, not even her parents? Power Loader looks in surprise. We can't let them know of what happened to their daughter. We will tell them, of course, but not before we find her body so their parent can hold a proper burial. Izuku replied, assuring them of what happened. Fine, but we need to tell Detective 𝗧𝗏𝗃 what happened. We're gonna need his help to find her body. Mike replied. Alright, I think over what happened, all of us could use a good night's sleep, Nizu said, quickly ending the meeting, feeling that the mammal was also tired in both body and mind as the rest of them. Izuku is now walking on a dark path in an alley behind the 𝗵𝗃 building. It was part of the alley that most criminals tend to use to trade stolen goods, but now the street is as empty as a graveyard because of the police and heroes who patrol around the area looking for him. The news of Jirou's death isn't made public just yet. Maybe because 𝗬𝗧𝗍 didn't want to alarm the whole 𝗵𝗃 that they allowed one more student to die. Of course, the death of Mina has been announced because of a villain attack, but there's not a single article that mentions his involvement with Mina's death except with the civilians who saw a glimpse of him shooting MDM president on the rooftop. Nizu had obviously swayed Detective 𝗧𝗏𝗁 to keep the matter secret because they didn't want to cause a citywide panic. The last thing they need other than two students who died at the hands of a former UA student is the idea that a former UA student has gone rogue and is on a killing spree. His plan is now to start working here. Izuku had proved to UA that he could easily kidnap one of their students right under their nose 2 times and kill them on the spot. Forcing Kakin to play the confession game otherwise, he will force to see his class die one after another is nothing but a strong punch to the gut. He knows that among the class, Kakin is always the one who seems to call the shot on every decision in their class, from a simple class gathering destination to framing him as the traitor. Kakin is always standing up front as the face of Class A. It's no surprise when Izuku asks through the phone that Kakin is the one who made the decision. He answers without any hesitation because it's in his nature to want to lead others to follow him. Now he was forced to bear the responsibility of his entire class's fate with his little game, and he couldn't back down even if he wanted to. First, because it's in his nature to not give up or admit defeat in anything in his life, so his pride won't allow that. Second, it's because he was announcing loudly to everyone that he's the big bad boss. If he chooses to back down, it only proves that Kakin is nothing but all bark and no bite, which is something that he won't allow. Either Kakin admits to his class wrongdoing to the whole world or he was forced to cut off one of his classmates at a time. Either choice is fine with Izuku. Of course, Izuku hasn't done just yet with his killing spree. There are still other names that need to be crossed off, and he doesn't intend to stop or let himself get captured until those names are crossed off from the list. He opened a small journal from his pocket containing the names of everyone who's met his hand. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗁𝗵𝘃𝗁. Those 3 names were already being crossed off from the book. Only a few more names left before he was finished, and he knew that he needed to change tactics around here. Grabbing a worn-out beanie that he found dumped near the trash can, he picked it up and dusted it to clean it up, making sure that it was presentable, and wore it, zipped his jacket fully, and tried to blend in with the civilians. He put both hands in his pocket, trying to keep himself on low profile while walking on the street. He continued to walk and found himself in a 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗧 company for fresh produce. He purposely bumped into one of the staff who just finished his shift and apologized, but not before he took his ID card and entered the gate. He walked over to the gate and a security guard came to stop him before entering. "ID please." Izuku showed the ID card that he stole and showed it to the guard before he checked out. "Okay, you're free to go." Entering the place, he pretended to work there by strolling around the area until he spotted 3 trucks loading out crates of food, from fresh vegetables to dairy produce. Everything that they needed to start a restaurant. But he didn't come here just to steal the food. He spots the 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗧 foreman holding the clipboard, which he assumes to holding the 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗧 schedule, and places it on top of a wooden table before he goes to a bathroom. Quickly, Izuku grabbed the clipboard containing the travel manifest along with the 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗧 schedule and truck's plate number, placed the paper into a photocopier, and printed himself one before he put the paper into his pocket and walked away. He put the clipboard back to where it came from, and just in time before the 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗧 foreman came and took the clipboard where he left it and shouted to the truck driver while eyeing the manifest. "All right, these trucks are going to UA. Load them up quickly and make sure they arrive tomorrow morning." Izuku walks away from the warehouse and stares at his copy of the 𝗕𝗏𝗍𝗧 schedule before he smiles. Nizu sits in his office with Detective Tsukachi, Aizawa, and All Might discussing the situation that was yesterday and from before regarding Mina's death. They had just finished talking with the parents regarding the death of their daughter, and the school had offered compensation in cash, but none of them seemed to be excited about getting the money, knowing that they had just lost a daughter. The death of Kyoka is also being disclosed to the public and by her parent at this moment. Tsukachi has ordered the police to do a quiet search regarding her body, along with the missing body of Mina, a Shido who's nowhere to be found up until this day. Nizu placed his head at the back of the chair with an exhausted look. "I think it's sufficient to say that this school is now at war with Midoriya. This is all my fault. If I just stood at my successor's side at the time and had just believed in him, he wouldn't be going down this road." Tashinori lamented about the situation, knowing that he shared the blame. "We can sulk about the matter all day, but right now we need to find the kid and bring him to justice," Aizawa spoke. "I hope so, Aizawa," Tashinori replied, turning his attention to Tsukachi. "How's the search for both young Ishido and young Jirou bodies?" "So far we come up empty. We've searched the city and we haven't found anything that can help us with it. But we're spread too thin right now, we can't alarm the civilians in panic," Tsukachi replied. Out of a sudden, Present Mike came bursting through the door looking all panicked. "Principal, this is bad." "What is it, Mike?" Aizawa asked, finding his behavior looked alarming. "You need to see this yourself, sir," Mike spoke, his face as white as a sheet. Soon all of them came running, following Mike during class, not paying attention to the few glances that they received from the window class. All of them were running following him until they came into the pantry with lunch rush and midnight covering their mouth at the kitchen pantry. They came to see the inside of the room to find the body of Mina, a Shido, hanging side by side to put the meat on a hook containing fresh produce for the UA pantry. Both Tsukachi and Aizawa covered their mouth at the smell of the corpse and held a horrified look at the gruesome scene. "God, is that her?" Tsukachi asked, looking in Aizawa's direction. "It's her. That's a Shido's body," Aizawa replied, covering his mouth to stop from vomiting. 30 minutes later, they covered the body with a tarp and closed the pantry until the police could move the body quietly after school hours. They gathered in front of the sealed-shut pantry contemplating the situation. How long has it been there? 𝗎𝗓 asked. I don't know, but the last time I opened the pantry, it was around a week ago. Lunch Rush reported. Counting her death, it's probably around 3 days maximum. 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 roughly calculates the time. How did he pull that off? Toshinori asked. The robots were putting off all the produced after it was being loaded down and being checked by me. I left the robots to unload the produce, and I think her body is placed on one of the crates filled with the meats. Lunch Rush went to explain the procedure. The whole pantry is wasted at this point. All that's left is probably canned goods. Mike points out. The white truck should be coming in a few hours, so we should be good. Lunch Rush assured them. I think that we shouldn't alert the students about the discovery. The last thing we wanted was to create panic in the school. Toshinori said. All right, I'm gonna call a coroner to come pick up the body at night. We should be able to avoid being found out by the students. 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 informed before taking his leave. Soon the class started like usual and everyone returned to their activity like before, and 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 returned to the police station. On the street headed towards UA, a 𝗕𝗶𝗿𝗺𝗽 truck is driving on top of a forested hill headed towards the school carrying groceries and fresh produce. The truck is driving on the street like usual when suddenly the truck hits a spike SRP on the road, causing the truck to lose control and spin around. The truck hit the road fence and fell down, but not before the driver managed to get himself out of the truck before it fell on the hill, causing it to explode and crash into the woods. 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 has just returned to the Mizudafu police force building after a long, exhausting day he had this morning. First, he didn't get enough sleep after handling the missing case of Mina Ishido's body, only to find that it was at UA freezer all this time. Now he finds himself arriving in the morning to learn that another student is missing and died by Izuku performing a live execution on a video phone during midnight. 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 is now tired and looking exhausted after handling the manhunt for her missing body quietly, since he didn't want to alarm the media or even the civilians. He arrives at the office only to find the place is in a ruckus with phone calls ringing through all day, and the chief is having a talk at his office with a SWAT member, much to his surprise. One of the officers who spotted 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 quickly told him to come to the chief office since there was an emergency. He quickly rushed over and knocked on the door to find the chief inside. You came looking for me, sir. Detective, just in time. I know that you were busy, but I need you to head to UA right away. The SWAT member will accompany you and you'll meet with the firefighter chief there along with a few local heroes. The chief orders the detective to go. 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 looked at him in confusion since he had just gotten back from there. But I just got back from there, sir. If it's about the body at the freezer, I'm not talking about that. The chief shook his head off. As of an hour ago, the entire UA is being held hostage by Izuku Midoriya. Flashback start. 𝗎𝗓 had just returned to the office when suddenly he received a text message from 𝗕𝗶𝗯𝗹, who patrolling the area, that a car had just fallen from the hill on the way to UA, but what made him worry was the car that fell down was a 𝗕𝗶𝗿𝗺𝗽 truck that carries the food produce that was got wasted from the pantry. He called for a staff meeting and informed them about the situation, and everyone started to worry about it. It has Izuku's name all over it, Vlad King states, looking sure to himself. It has to be. Who else is dare to target a food 𝗕𝗶𝗿 system to UA? Power Loader added. But the question is, why would he target the truck? It doesn't make any sense. 𝗎𝗓 looks in wonder, not understanding his reason. His question is about to get answered as his phone is ringing, and it doesn't take a genius to know who is it that's calling. Mike, I need you and Power Loader to track this number. I don't want us to go in the dark for a second time. 𝗎𝗓 orders as he starts to read the phone number out loud for Power Loader to track it. You need to buy me at least 40 seconds to track him. Power Loader replied. Hello, Midoriya. 𝗎𝗓 smiles, picking up the phone, already having a guess on who is it. Well, am I starting to get easily predicted now, Principal 𝗎𝗓? Izuku replied while softly chuckling. I'm afraid so. To be honest, I thought you would have covered your tracks more carefully, but you'd begin to get sloppy now if you asked me. 𝗎𝗓 tried to get any sort of response from Midoriya but found his silence to be his answer. Guess he's not that easy to get riled up. I could assume that you're the one that's responsible for attacking the food 𝗕𝗶𝗿 truck. 𝗎𝗓 starts to ask, trying to get some form of information. Perhaps. Izuku sounds vague with his answers, but they could tell that it was him. What are you planning, if I may know? Are you planning to rob our food source? 𝗵𝗃 chuckled. Maybe, but that was only a step into my plan. All of a sudden, the electricity and internet of the place is down, the office is losing power and the room is turned dark. The others look around wondering if this was the work of Izuku as well. What is going on? What's going on is that I just hacked the entire electric grid off the place. No power, no internet, no electricity. Just this phone line we're currently talking about right now. You're planning on turning the entire UA into a stone age. Oh, that's hardly my plan, to be honest. Izuku chuckled. 𝗵𝗃 starts to grow a tick mark at his way of talking when Mike manages to triangulate his location just before the blackout kills the internet. It's just a few meters away from the front gate of UA, hiding amongst the bushes and trees. 𝗵𝗃 points his finger at Izuku, ectoplasm, hound dog, and midnight to capture him right away. While he keeps himself talking. And what is your plan, if I may ask? You already traumatized my students, sending Ishido's head to class A, playing your death game with Bakugo, and assassinating Jirou in front of us. I assumed that there was an endgame to all of this, right? True, what's the point of playing a game if not reaching the finish line? It's just time-consuming and boring. The staff quickly runs off to the school gate with ectoplasm already deploying his clones to help search the area. His clones are running in a symmetric line towards the gate. But I just wanted to create a little bit of mayhem. One of the ectoplasm clones steps out of the front gate with his feet planted into the ground outside the perimeter of UA when suddenly a gunshot hits him straight in the head, causing the clone to disperse. Everyone who was standing behind him immediately took cover behind the wall on their left and right, including the real ectoplasm, knowing they were on the sniping range. Principal, this is bad. The whole school is on the sniping range. Hound dog alerted through his intercom. Principal 𝗵𝗃 looks in shock at that news while he's currently on the phone with Izuku. Izuku, who's on the other side of the phone, chuckled at him. You think I didn't predict that you'd be trying to triangulate my position? And even if you could somehow find me, I got my eyes on the whole area, ready to snipe you anytime you exit through the gate. Always remember, Principal, I am always one step ahead. So you're planning on trapping the whole school, including myself and the staff. Unless Kakin comes out and announces that the entire class framing me, you'll be having almost 600 students come running in riot. No power, no food, no internet. You do the math, Principal. 𝗵𝗃 knows that having the entire students in the riot is the worst thing that could happen right now. With no food to keep their hunger away, no electricity so they couldn't hang out in the dorm or school, and no internet to keep their boredom away. And the fact that if any student that steps out gets their head blown off is nothing more than putting them in danger, since they don't have the idea that Izuku Midoriya is the one that's responsible for the death of Ishido and Jirou. Any person who walks out from that gate, having their face on my crosshair, I'll blow their head off and your school will be making the news headline tomorrow morning. Izuku warns him off the phone. So if I catch so much as a whiff of a tail or Izuku-sensei trying to sneak out of school, I'll be forced to do the unthinkable. Why are you doing this, Midoriya? You used to be a hero. One of the students of this school. You're All Might's successor, not some vigilante who's after some revenge. 𝗵𝗃 asked, hoping that he would see for a reason. Izuku held to his silence for a moment before answering. You put me in that prison, Principal, and you stood by, doing nothing other than letting the guards take me to Tartarus. You, Izuku-sensei, All Might, none of you even bothered to listen to my pleas or let me make some form of argument. You just go for the easy route and want to wash your hands away from all the trouble that lies ahead. You put your trust blindly in Izuku-sensei, thinking that he was able to manage his class properly. But let me tell you something, Principal. I learned in 7 months inside that prison more than I ever did under the guidance of UA and Izuku-sensei, that I learned that I don't believe in justice any longer, only vengeance. Izuku then hung up on the call, leaving 𝗵𝗃 in his thoughts, knowing that all of this is because of their ignorance and fear, thus creating history's worst monster. Tsukachi arrived at the hill where the road would take them toward UA, but the SWAT has created a blockade that prevent them from getting into UA. He's being appointed by the chief to lead the investigation and the operation for capturing Izuku Midoriya, who they believe is hiding among the woods. Alright, I want this entire neighborhood blocked off and evacuated. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 orders once he comes out of the car. Sansa, you're in charge of road closures. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 points his finger at the officer with a cat feature. Keep all civilians and redirect all cars and any transport that comes into the hill. SWAT, you're with me for a heavy search of the woods. He points toward the group of people. Wear your tactical gear and cooperate with the heroes in the search of any suspicious individual amongst the forest. Check traffic cams and see if any of them caught Izuku Midoriya exit through the woods by foot or any cars or bike or hitchhiking trucks. Someone get me a radio. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 yelled out, and one of the officers handed him the radio for him to contact Principal Nizu. Principal, do you hear me? 𝗬𝗁𝗁 speaks through the radio. Yeah, I did. How's the search going? Principal asked. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 clicks the radio. We're just about to start right now. How's the school? It seems that Midoriya is indeed trying to cause chaos amongst the students. Nizu replied, with no power and internet and very little food going on, the students are starting to get restless. Keep them inside the school as long as possible. We can't have any students going around outside of UA in case Midoriya decides to open fire. Any chance that you might know where Midoriya might be coming from to help us narrow the search? It's a big forest and there's plenty of places to hide. Ectoplasm said that his clone got shot exactly from the right side of his face, so I estimate that he fired his shot from the east side of the school. And I assumed that none of you could get the power back on. Midoriya hacked through the system far better than I could ever imagine. I didn't know that the kid had a hacking skill to begin with. He completely shut down the entire system inside the school and rewrote it with a new code. That kind of hacking can only be done if he's around 900 feet from the UA physical server, which is located on the east building. Okay, I'll narrow the search perimeter and see if we can have any idea where he might be hidden. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 replied and ordered the search team to head to the east side of the forest. And Principal, I suggest that you might start an alternative for solving this matter. Such as? Nizu asked. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 scoffs. You know as well as I do that this whole matter can be easily solved by a single message made by that boy. Aizawa has already brought Bakugo along with the rest of the class to my office as we speak. Even if it sounds illegal, I might have to force the kid to confess to the media, Nizu commented. To be honest, I think that's your only option at this point. Izuku isn't just putting that class into a hostage, he brought the entire school to go down with him. He's upping his game to a new level. 𝗬𝗁𝗁 replied, giving his opinion. Get off me, you hobo. Katsuki continued to grunt while being dragged by Aizawa's scarf wrapped over to his arms, preventing him from moving. Shinszo followed right next to Aizawa-sensei, walking with a look of distress to his face. The rest of Class A also follows behind him, watching their sensei dragged Bakugo out of the dorm to the office. Okay, I gotta go, detective. Nizu ended the call before turning his attention towards Bakugo, who got dragged by Aizawa. Well, I see that you got my message. If you're talking about that hobo who dragged me from the dorm to let everyone see me across the school, I think I get it. Katsuki grunted. Wonderful. Nizu clapped his paws together, showing a sweet smile that Katsuki found condescending. A problem has arisen within the school, Bakugo. Your moment has come at last. Huh. As you had assumed, the whole school is now out of power and food because Midoriya has hacked into the entire UA grid. We need you to make a statement about the lie that you orchestrated along with your class on a live television. Huh. Didn't you always say that you wanted to be a hero? Now your time has come at last. Nizu said mockingly, you get to save the whole school. Forget it. I'm not confessing any SHT to that Deku. Katsuki replied angrily. If it has to come to force, then it will, Aizawa threatened, his eye now flashing a red color as he glared at Katsuki. You will do it, otherwise we'll kick you out of this school. What? It seems that you still haven't felt the guilt from your action, or that you are simply unable to feel any sort of emotion except anger, Nizu replied with a sweet smile that Katsuki found not very pleasant. While I don't exactly tolerate such behavior as you, Katsuki Bakugo, I figure that I should find a path where both sides don't suffer major damage. But when you threaten the safety of every student in my school, including the staff, that's where I draw the line. You will make a statement of the lie that you concocted with your class, otherwise, we can say goodbye to your dream and Aizawa will kick you out of the school at this moment. And let me tell you right now that Midoriya is out there with a sniper locking into the main gate of UA. Meaning that if you get kicked out of the school, your head will also get blown off like a cantaloupe, just like what he tried to do with ectoplasm. He proved that with 𝗕𝗄𝗏, and I don't think that you want your dream to end so quickly faster than you can blink. Aizawa added. Now Katsuki is caught in a rock-and-hard-place situation as he realizes that he was trapped with no way out for this predicament. Like a rat in a maze. Perhaps for the first time in his life, he began to shiver and lost with no sense of direction. He had no idea why. In his mind, Bakugo considered himself the strongest hero that ever existed on the face of this earth. And now he felt cornered. Like they knew what he was hiding, but decided to wait for him to say something. The only question now was when would he crack? This could be it. The one time where he would be forced to confess his crimes. His future as the #1 hero would be extinguished and he would have no one but Deku to blame for all of it. However, all he could do was stutter. He had no idea what to tell the world without giving Deku away as his doll to punch in the last 10 years and incarcerated him in prison. And even if he did know what to say, it would only arouse suspicion of what his true nature as a hero really is. Either way, he needed to speak and give them an answer. If he chooses to confess and caves to Deku's demand, the whole world will know what he truly is along with his class. They won't just send him to prison and suspend his hero's license, they would have been ostracized for the rest of their life for sending an innocent person to prison. Their life is practically over. But if he didn't go with the demand, then he would get kicked out of his dream school, and the moment he stepped out of the gate, he would get killed like what happened to raccoon eyes and ears. Thinking about this, Katsuki's heart stopped. If he were to come forward with his crimes against Deku, he could kiss more than his future career as a pro hero goodbye. He would lose his scholarship, family, and his entire life because of what he did to the shitty nerd. But if he were to remain quiet, it would only mean that his life is over. Either he died socially or physically, that's his current option at this moment. Why not just skip the detail and give him the boot instead? All heads are turning to the source of the voice, which happens to be Kaminari, who glares at the ashen blonde-haired kid. His eyes emit a great hatred over what happened to Jirou, whereas Katsuki treats her life as if a game, not seeming to be bothered that she's dead. What did you say, dunce face? Katsuki glared at him with a threatening look. I'd say that maybe we should have kicked you out and let Midoriya have its way with you. Midoriya is only interested the most in you because you're the one who planned the whole thing. If we gave you up, maybe he would back off for good and leave the rest of us alone. Are you crazy? Ida said to Kaminari in bewilderment. You're willing to just give him up like that? If we don't, then they kill everyone including us. Kaminari shot back. You saw what Bakugo did to Midoriya, you know what he is. He doesn't care that Mina or Jirou died and is only interested in winning a big PP competition with Midoriya. I refuse to die because we refuse to trade a scumbag like him away. Shut up, dunce face. You don't care that Jirou died or Mina or how he roped all of us into his little game or how he held the entire school hostage. All you cared about was winning, no matter how much people had to be sacrificed until you won. Kaminari looks around the room full of his friends and keeps shooting question after question. You think that Bakugo will ever admit that he framed Midoriya? He can't admit that he's a bully, let alone for framing Midoriya in the first place. If I had the choice, I would have confessed it to save Jirou, and I'm sure that any of you would make that decision immediately. He looks around and finds some of them internally agree with what he just said, but not Bakugo, because the only person that matters in his life is nothing but himself. He slowly walks over to his face before speaking in a slow tone, a psychopathic spoiled child who had a longing to be a hero because he used to watch some caped man flying around the city. Shut your mouth. Katsuki throws a punch at Kaminari's jaw, causing him to falter to his back and blood dripping from his lips. Everyone watches the confrontation as Kaminari wipes his lips before asking him one more question. Tell me, Bakugo, how many people have to be sacrificed before you become the #1 hero? Katsuki tried to lunge at Kaminari's direction, trying to give him more than a beatdown for talking back to him, but he was thrown back by Aizawa, who pulled him to the floor and got his butt handed on the floor. It's not a statement, Bakugo. Either you'll say to the media or we could ask Shinszo to do it for you. 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 is scouring over to the woods with the SWAT members and a group of armed police officers, leading the search party for Midoriya, who's hiding among the woods. They all had their hands on the guns and weapons in hand, after 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 had briefed them of the situation, that Izuku Midoriya was armed and dangerous and had hidden himself in the woods with a sniper rifle. That's why 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 had told them to wear full gear to cover their body, wearing Kevlar and helmet to cover their body parts, and to the heroes who were joining the search party. They were scouring the woods when 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 received a report from one of the SWAT members through his communicator. "Detective, I had a visual. Someone wearing a camo leaf suit hiding behind the bushes. I think it's him, sir." "Did he have a weapon?" "A rifle." "He had, sir, but I don't have a clear shot." "Don't open fire. I repeat, don't open fire." 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 orders. "Create a perimeter around him and contain him. I repeat, don't open fire unless it's absolutely necessary." 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 calls the rest of the search party to head to the officer's location to help surround Midoriya before they realize that he is getting captured. He quickly ran into the woods, trying to get himself on time before it was too late. "Sir, we had hostile in check. Perimeter secured." The SWAT member replied through his communicator. "Okay, subdue the target. We're on our way." 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 gave them his permission while he was running towards the location. Soon 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 and the rest of them managed to head towards the perimeter with his hands holding to his gun. "It's over, Midoriya. Put your hands above your head and drop your weapon." The officers are pinning the boy in the camo suit as all officers have their guns trained at him before the SWAT officers turn him over for everyone to see. "So, what's it gonna be, Bakugo?" Nizu asked, waiting for his answer to come from his mouth. Katsuki stood in silence, not knowing what to do at this point, almost feeling like he was lost without a sense of direction. Like he was drowning in the middle of the sea without a life raft. He knows that all of this was a plan made by Deku to ruin his life because he tricked him. He wanted to get back at the nerd once he got arrested so he could make sure that he would never have any plans on doing something like this again in the future. Maybe he shanked him with a knife on the way or blew his head off, or maybe he broke his leg, making sure that he was as useless as he was before. However, despite all of that thought and being confused about it all, there was one thing he knew he had to do. Katsuki had to say yes. Because all he has ever wanted, ever dreamed of doing, was to become a hero. He thought he had been on track before. He was the only one from that shitty middle school to make it into UA's hero course. Had wanted to be the only one to go to UA altogether, but Deku had gone the way and followed him like the cockroaches he was. Now here he was, in the principal's office discussing Katsuki's life decision to be in the esteemed UA hero course. If he said, no, here, Katsuki would probably be forced to confess and tell the media everything about what happened. But if he said yes, then he would lose his destiny to be the #1 hero. Either way, Katsuki's future is F from the get-go when he spoke over to that telephone. So, with an irritated but conceding huff, Katsuki gave his answer. No. Aizawa and Nizu watched with disappointment in their eyes, almost like they had predicted his answer from the beginning, almost like Katsuki's entire decision was like an open book to them. The rest of the class watches off his answer, wondering just how self-centered he is in letting the entire school get F because of his ego. Very well, since it has come into this, then we have no other choice, I guess. Nizu replied in a regretful tone before he signaled Aizawa, who nodded and turned his attention to Shinszo to do his job. Shinszo is walking in front of Katsuki, trying to force him to reply to his answer when suddenly he receives a call from Detective 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 on the radio. "Detective, did you have some good news?" Nizu picked up the radio, wondering if Midoriya was already captured. "I'm afraid I have some bad news, Principal," 𝗬𝗁𝗁𝗍 replied. "It's not him." "What do you mean?" Nizu asked. "We found a guy wearing a camo suit, but it turns out to be a bunch of college students playing a paintball game. They received 5,000 yen each if they were to come to play the game at the exact hour and location." Aizawa takes the radio from Nizu's desk. "Hold on, what about the rifle shot that hits ectoplasm-clone? We swept the area and it turns out we found over 14 remote sniper rifles placed in the woods. All had their targets on UA gate, including your back door. How did it fire in the first place? Thermal sensor, anyone who's in the range gets shot from it, and there's a phone connected to one of them, and it's made to the phone Izuku gave me before." That's how he called us and how he knew that we tracked his location. Because the rifle had fired the shot. Tsukachi looks around in worry, so that begs the question, if Izuku isn't here, then where is he? It's downtown on Mizudafu and most streets are filled with many pedestrians who walk on the sidewalk and cars driving on the road. The subway is also packed with many passengers traveling during the lunch hour after everyone is trying to go out to get something to eat. At the center of the building, a group of citizens is gathering in the middle of the city park for the commemorative statue of all might to his accomplishments during his time in Japan. The sponsor of the event is a 40-year-old gentleman who runs a support item factory in Minato, Ryotaro Yamauchi, as he walks onto the stage greeting the civilians who gathered. "Thank you all for coming." He stood in front of the podium giving his speech. "With all that ails our city, I think it's fair to ask why we would spend time and money to honor anyone, why we would commission a statue and have a ceremony to unveil it. Surely, those resources could be put to better ends, but I, for one, think there is no better end than a reminder of what we are capable of when we stand together united, a reminder of those who have made the ultimate sacrifice protecting our home, and a reminder that as long as we keep their spirit in our hearts, there will always be better days ahead. And as he reminds us, let us always remember him." He shows towards the statue that's covered in a red veil. "Ladies and gentlemen, Japan's finest hero, All Might." The tarp is being unveiled in front of everyone. Everyone shrieks in horror as reporters and cameramen flash their pictures over to the statue of supposed to be All Might. Instead is being covered in red BLD, and the statue itself is being replaced by a sight of Kyokajiru's corpse with a single bullet wound with a crucified pose strapped to a metal cross. Under the statue where the name plaque is, there's a red writing in BLD covering the name plaque with a message. "The Ghost Killer." Principal Nizu just got a report from Detective Tsukachi that Jiru's body is found on a display on a commemorative statue honoring All Might and being crucified. They said that every newsletter and newscaster who arrived on the scene got a full display of the gruesome scene, and the news of her death is already on the air and it's the top story of the day. Not only that, but Midoriya also left a message of his calling card, the Ghost Killer, painted on the statue plague to show who's responsible for it, causing the media to go on a full stir about the situation, and Nizu is forced to put the fire that was made by the media, wondering how is this happening and if UA had any idea of why. The Jirou family is already on the way towards the school, wanting to know how their daughter was found dead where UA was supposed to keep their students at school, and wants to know why their daughter was found dead and hanged in a public place like she was a display or something. The door is opened and both Jirou's family came wearing a distraught look on their face. Her mother is crying, wiping her tears with her handkerchief while his husband is trying to comfort him along the way. "Good morning, and thank you for coming in so promptly, despite the crowd of reporters outside," he said, giving a sympathetic look towards them. "I'm sorry to say that I have some troubling news to share." "Kyoka." "Oh God." Jirou's mom covered her face with both her palms, feeling that she didn't have the strength to go through the whole conversation. Her body, what about her body? Her husband decides to take the lead in the conversation. It's already being taken down and moved into the morgue, but unfortunately the media already caught hundreds of photos and videos of her body before they were able to cover it, Nizu replied. "The staff will help in moving her belongings out of the dorm. If there's anything that you want us to pick, no, we appreciate it. She had a guitar, one that she always carried. I need to pick that up myself." Jirou's father nodded, thanking the principal for his gesture. To be honest, he didn't think that he could go inside her dorm without dropping a tear inside, knowing that her daughter was no longer for him. "Thank you. But I'm afraid that we need to discuss her behavior that led to her tragic demise." "Her behavior? What are you talking about?" Jirou's mother pulled her hand out of her face to look at the principal in confusion. "I know that this isn't the best time to speak about the dead, but Jirou's death is a cause that was caused by a former student of ours, Izuku Midoriya," Nizu informed them with a heavy heart. Both of them looked in confusion and shocked as they remembered the name. As far as they remember, Izuku Midoriya was pronounced as the traitor of UA 7 months ago and escaped from Tartarus just recently. There are a few sights of him appearing, including being a suspect in the death of the HPSC president. What do you mean? I don't understand." Her husband rose from the chair, not understanding any of it. It has come to our attention that your daughter, along with the entire Class A, is framing Izuku Midoriya to be the traitor of UA. It also has led the staff, including me, to listen to their assumption, which led us to prosecute Izuku Midoriya and send him to prison. It took about a full minute for the parents to process the information out of their mind, and that's even not enough to know what happened. Is their daughter helping to frame a classmate of hers? It doesn't make any sense. Wait a minute. You're telling me that our daughter is helping in conspiring some sort of plot to send Izuku Midoriya into prison, and you expect us to believe this sort of nonsense? I know that this is a hard thing to accept, but if you just... Nizu then gets cut off when suddenly the door of his office is slammed open by All Might. Sir, there's something you need to see. All Might came rushing carrying a tablet containing news from the media. We interrupt this program for a special news bulletin. The reporter announces, sitting at her table, it's breaking news out of Mizudafu, Japan. Izuku Midoriya, a former UA hero student who broke out of Tartarus prison, has continued to elude the authorities, leaving a trail of crime in his wake. And today, he left behind something else. He grabbed the tablet and placed it on the table to see Izuku Midoriya sitting on a wooden chair with a camera in front of him. From the background, it seems like it was filmed inside a warehouse. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and I'm here to confess. Katsuki is being returned to the dorm along with the rest of the class while being accompanied by Aizawa-sensei, who hasn't taken his eyes off the boy ever since he came here, and after being told by Principal Nizu that he had a meeting with Jirou's parents. Luckily, the power returned after Power Loader had fixed the generator and the internet, but it still doesn't solve their hunger problem, but that's one problem down at the moment. Right now, the whole class has their eyes on both Kaminari and Katsuki in case one of them is trying to break a fight like before, but with Aizawa-sensei here at present, it seems that they don't have to worry about excessive fight other than throwing insult at most. Kaminari glared down at Katsuki's direction almost like he was wishing that he was born with a laser eye quirk so that he could set the ashen blonde on fire or liquefy him. What are you looking at, huh? Katsuki replied harshly. Nothing. Just wondering what kind of sum are you? To be unable to shed any tears to their classmate. Kaminari counters. Kaminari, knock it off. Toru tries to calm the situation. Shut it. No, 'cause I want to talk about it. He began to rise from the sofa and stared at the blonde, pointing his finger at him. How could you act so selfish right now? You're willing to put all of us in danger just because you didn't have the ball to admit that we framed Midoriya in the first place. I didn't have to admit Jax hit Dun's face. That Deku deserves it for all I care. As far as I can tell, I think that he needs more than I gave him before. Katsuki spats. Oh, that's rich, coming from the guy who didn't even shed a single drop of tear when two of our classmates had already died. One is missing and the other is being put on a public display like some kind of decorative gift. Kaminari mentioned both Mina and Jirou's demise at Midoriya's hands. It's their fault for getting captured. Not my fault that they can't defend themselves. Katsuki replied. You hear that? That self-centered piece of 𝗧𝗍 just announced that he won't care that all of us died, as long as the great Katsuki Bakugo is the last one standing. Kaminari points out. You want to go too, Sparky? Katsuki said. His eyes had a dangerous glint to them, even more than usual. Come on bro, he didn't mean that. Kirishima came in between. I know that Bakugo felt sad about them, it's just he didn't show it to us. Then why don't you go ask your so-called best friend then? Ask yourself Kirishima if he felt saddened that Mina is dead. She's a member of your so-called group, right? Kaminari roared, his face reddened. I don't have to prove anything to anyone, especially not to a bunch of extras like you. Katsuki spats. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot that you're not a crier. Because he's not a big baby like the rest of us. Shut it. Katsuki roared, pulling his fist to release an explosion from his palm to shut Kaminari's mouth, but his quirk got nullified by Aizawa-sensei and his fist got pulled back by Kirishima. Bro, that's enough. Kirishima holds Katsuki, stopping him from lunging at Kaminari as the rest of the class watches both of them about to have a confrontation. Is that how you treat people in your life? Kaminari asked out loud. Bakugo, that's enough. Ida came in between and reprimanded him. It's just another day in the life of Emperor Katsuki. We've seen what you do with your friends, nothing but jackshit. Enough. Ida shouted louder than both Kaminari and Katsuki's voices as he came in between. The class watches as the two of them are about to go to each other's throats, and Izawa-sensei doesn't even step in to stop any of them except by flashing his quirk to nullify Bakugo's quirk. He didn't even come to strap Bakugo or Kaminari with his scarf, as he just watched from the sideline as a spectator. Then suddenly all of their phones rang at the same time, including Izawa-sensei, as they felt a sense of déjà vu before they opened their phone, and everyone received the same text message showing a video link from a news platform as an emergency broadcast of a reporter holding a recorded message of Izuku Midoriya. "Guys, it's Midoriya." Ida looked at his phone to check if they received the same message, and it turns out they did. Everyone clicked the video link all together, while some others like Yaoyorozu volunteered to connect her phone with a USB to connect the television screen to her phone to watch the video. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Izuku Midoriya, and I'm here to confess." Izuku spoke in front of the camera recording. "I escaped from Tartarus prison because I was sentenced for a crime I did not commit," Izuku said, his face hardened with each sentence. "Some of you have known me, others don't. But I'm not here to tell you about what happened to me now, but I want to tell you about what happened before. The truth." Izuku took a moment to exhale air before he started to speak. "I am not the UA traitor. I was framed by a group of students who I once assumed to be my friends and classmates. The whole class, all of them conspired to get rid of me for no apparent reason. Katsuki Bakugo is the ringleader of the whole plan. He had been plotting to kick me out of the school ever since I entered UA because he had a reason to believe that he was the only person who was allowed to come to UA from 𝗷𝗫𝗎 Junior High. Over the years, 𝗷𝗫𝗎 has done a massive cover-up with Katsuki Bakugo case regarding his bullying case over the last 3 years while I was in 𝗷𝗫𝗎. Even before entering 𝗷𝗫𝗎, my previous school has also done the same thing by covering any evidence that suggested Katsuki Bakugo ever conducted such an act. He roped the whole class to help him send me into prison. He swayed the whole teachers in school to believe that I was the UA traitor. My incarceration is even counted as illegal, as the whole matter is being signed off by MDM president of HPSC. Katsuki throws his phone off to the wall, shattering it before screaming in anger, his mouth foaming, "Deku." He walked from the living room and made his way toward the door before he got stopped by Ida, Kirishima, and Shoji. "Bakugo, where are you going?" Ida came in front of his way, wondering where he was planning to go. "Where else? 4 eyes, stopping that broadcast." Katsuki snarled. "And how do you plan on doing that?" "Bomb the news station. Rampaging around the city to change the news towards you. Or maybe you assassinate the reporter and everyone who works there on live television." Kaminari snarks while the others continue to listen to the video. Ever since before entering UA, Katsuki Bakugo has displayed numerous signs of villainous behavior, from bullying to an attempted murder. This record, of course, is being erased from his school record at 𝗷𝗫𝗎 Junior High to make sure that Bakugo could pursue a heroic path and help indirectly to boost 𝗷𝗫𝗎 school reputation itself as a hero alumni. Of course, my words alone aren't enough to prove this. Records and paper trail is something that can be falsified, but the internet, that's a different matter. Midoriya then pulled out his phone and showed a video from social media with the title, "Explosion King Beat Quirkless Loser," in front of the camera for everyone to see from an account called Nakatani2112. It was a video inside of an 𝗷𝗫𝗎 school where Bakugo beats up Midoriya when he is still in 𝗷𝗫𝗎. It was the day when the teacher announced that Midoriya wanted to go to UA. "Hey, shitty nerd. Where do you get off on going to UA?" Katsuki roared, with his palms crackling with raging explosions. Midoriya flinched, with his viridian green eyes widening in fear as he backed away until his body hit his desk. "Kakakakan. Just want to try." Katsuki glared at the nerd as he took a few steps forward. Midoriya's body gave another violent JRK, as he pulled up his weird notebook as some joke of a defense. What's this?" Katsuki was quick to snatch the notebook away from the nerd, ignoring his weak, meek protest. "Hero analysis for the future," it read. The ashen-haired teen barked out a laugh as he exploded the notebook between the palms of his hands and tossed it out of the window. My god, Deku. You really are pathetic. Your stalker notebooks won't get you anywhere in life. At best you might get a job as a weak villain before you get killed off for being so pitiful and pathetic. Katsuki placed a hand on his shoulder, exploding a part of Midoriya's shoulder with his explosion. Got something to say, nerd? No. Midoriya squealed, ducking his head. Katsuki barked out another laugh as he spun around and headed towards the door. His lackeys followed suit, but before he fully left, he idled by the doorway and cocked his head back to look at the crying Deku. Hey, I have some advice. If you want a quirk so badly, why don't you take a swan dive off the rooftop and pray for a quirk in the next life? Maybe you'll get better luck, shitty nerd. Katsuki left on the last word, with a brazen, feral grin on his lips. He was proud of what he said, and he hoped it managed to convince the nerd to finally leave him alone and stop following him. Evidence is everywhere. Even if the user deletes this video, it's already been liked, shared, and saved. Midoriya looked at the camera with something akin to disappointment. Tagging it #quirklesskid_gets_schooled makes you sound like you're in primary school and it's already spread for a long time. This is the prime example of the evidence. There are hundreds of videos uploaded on the internet with the tagline #quirklessdeku on the internet. If you searched hard enough, counted for over 3 years alone in Aldra. Izuku speaks in a monotone voice as his eyes trailed towards the camera. As you all wondering, Mina Ishido's death has some relates to me after my escape. The truth of that matter is that I killed her. I killed Mina Ishido at Kyoshi Mall while she was on her way to the mall, and I beheaded her and sent the top part to UA where the media found her head. And as for the body, it's located in a cooler at UA food storage and I sent it about 3 days ago. Students who are watching the video quickly vomit knowing that the food they were consuming is also with the same dead body of Class A missing students of Class A. A few of them started to pale and vomit in the class, the hallway, or the dorms. Yesterday, I also kidnapped 𝗕𝗁𝗍𝗫 from a midnight concert show and executed her. But before I pulled the trigger, I made contact with UA authority and Katsuki Bakugo was responsible for making the choice I made at the time. Either he saves Jirou and confesses to his crime of framing me, or he keeps his silence and lets her fall victim. Bakugo chose to ignore my threat and I killed her. Her body is being displayed at the All-Might commemorative statue at the park as a show of how serious I am. I gave Katsuki Bakugo a chance to admit and come clean for the crimes he committed, but he chose to ignore it. He kept his dream to be a hero alive at the expense of others' lives because Katsuki Bakugo didn't want to admit that he was in the wrong. Now I won't pretend that what I did isn't heroic. Because I feel like I can't follow the path of heroes after what happened during my incarceration, which is why I won't rest until everyone from UA Hero Course Class 2A is buried deep 6 feet from the ground by my hand. As of today, I am declaring my war against Class A and UA for their action towards me 7 months ago. Izuku Midoriya died in prison 7 months ago, and I'm here to show everyone that justice is dead. At the same time, All Might retired. There's only one path that exists, and that's vengeance. I am the Ghost Killer.